Chapter 244. Junior Martial Uncle, don't fight. You can't fight anymore. Fang Yingying yelled while covering his head. You just called me an idiot. If I continue to fight now, I'll be a retard. If I had known earlier, I would have fought with the old monster of the Chiba army. Even if I was killed by him with a sword, I would still be proud if I died like this. Fang Yen sneered and said, You want to fight with the Chiba army with your mediocre skills? Others are fighting with their lives, but you're going to die. You just want to say that Miss Yi is better than us. Fang Yingying said anxiously. After saying that, he immediately realized what a stupid thing he had said. He hurriedly said, Of course, your way of thinking is completely correct. Who is Miss Yi? She is a first-class master in Wuxia. She is invincible in the world. Except for Junior Martial Uncle, who can last 3 rounds with her. Fang Yen was too lazy to fight these 2 rascals anymore. He asked Fang Haohan to get water for him to wash his hands. These 2 guys hadn't washed their hair for a long time. Their hair was greasy and Fang Yan's palms were covered with that sticky substance. What? Do you think being killed by the Chiba army is something to be proud of? Fang Yen looked at Fang Yingying and asked. I didn't mean that, Fang Yingying explained with a smile. In my beautiful imagination, of course, it would be more glorious if I killed the Chiba army. But we can't do it. Last time, Junior Martial Uncle said that he couldn't make a move when he saw him. I even laughed at Junior Martial Uncle in my heart for exaggerating and saying that the old guy was too powerful. Pah! Fang Yen couldn't help but slap Fang Yingying's head again and scolded, What right do you have to laugh at me in your heart? Can you judge more accurately than me with your greasy eyelids that can't see 3 meters away? Yes. Fang Yingying nodded again and again. You said the wrong thing again. This slap was worth it. Junior Martial Uncle is right. I had a little doubt before, but after I practiced it myself, I found that the old guy was just standing there casually. I didn't know where to attack him. Is this the master of the wall stage? Isn't he too powerful? Of course, young Martial Uncle's foresight is even sharper. Even though it was the first time he met him, he already knew everything about him. Fang Yen shook his head and said with a wry smile, If I was really that powerful, would you and Fang Haohan risk your life to fight him? Fang Yingxiong opened his mouth and said, We asked him to risk our lives because Fang Haohan and I felt that how could we use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? It's a waste of resources. Fang Haohan and I will get rid of him first so that after Junior Martial Uncle defeats him, others will say that you are bullying the weak. It's not worth it. Fang Yen washed his hands in the basin that Fang Haohan brought over. He looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan seriously and said, I know that you are worried that I can't beat the Chinya army. You are worried that I will be injured or even die. So you 2 idiots went by yourselves. With your mediocre skills, wouldn't it be a dead end if you went? You haven't reached that level yet, so there is no way to know how powerful the Chinya army is. Even his disciple will be a rare opponent for you. You are afraid that I will be injured, afraid that I will die. Am I not afraid that you 2 will be injured? Am I not afraid that you 2 will die? This is my battle and my responsibility. Since he came to me, even if I die in battle, I will keep my promise. This has nothing to do with my personal honor or face. It is for the dignity of all the warriors in Wuxia. If I lose, there will be another person who will challenge me. If I die, there will be another person who will come out to avenge me. Fang Yen patted Fang Yingying on the shoulder and said, But I don't want the next person to be you because I know that you will lose and die. You just need to live like this. Even if I am gone, you can still take care of my parents and the old drunkard for me. So, you are more valuable alive than dead. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Don't die so easily. Fang Yen turned and left, leaving Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan in a daze in the courtyard. Fang Haohan was emotional. His eyes were red and tears flowed out. He said in a choked voice, Fang Yingying, I want to kill those bastards. Why did they bully Junior Martial Uncle? Fang Yingying also cried. He looked even sadder than Fang Haohan. Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying and comforted him. Hero, don't worry. Junior Martial Uncle will be fine. His martial arts are so good that the old monster might not be able to defeat him. Fang Yingying wiped his tears with his sleeves and said, Junior Martial Uncle used my clothes to wipe his hands. The water dripped onto my neck. It was still early winter in Huaqing, but winter in Yanjing was already extremely cold. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at the fewer leaves on the locust tree, and they felt better and better. After a while, it should be snowing in Beijing, right? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were both from the south. It was Jiang Qin's first time walking out of Huaqing. Yuan Lin spent most of her time in Huaqing, apart from occasionally accompanying her parents to the north in spring and autumn. So, the two of them had actually never seen real snow. So, they had been looking forward to the arrival of the first snow of the year. They were looking forward to making snowmen in the snow, having snowball fights, and even hugging the person they liked in the snow. Jiang Qin was wearing a white training suit, while Yuan Lin was wearing a black one. The slim and soft training suit outlined the girl's figure extremely well, causing the two boys next to them to keep peeking at them. The two boys were Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's classmates, and they could be regarded as fellow apprentices. After Mao Xianping, who became famous after successfully training Xia Tian, retired from the music academy, he specially took a practice room in the school to train his disciples. Before Xia Tian sent Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin here, there were already two guys who were one step ahead of him. The tall and thin guy was called Guanyu, the son of the famous domestic film and television star Guo Qingyun. He inherited the excellent genes of his parents and was very handsome. The other boy, who looked very gentle and elegant with glasses, was called Huang Yida. He usually looked very low-key, but he always had a superior arrogance. No one knew what his family background was. An old man with slicked-back hair was lying on a chair with his eyes slightly closed, looking like he was about to fall asleep. Jiang Qin's body was sitting in front of a guzheng, his body slightly leaning forward, his fingers gently fiddling with the guzheng. The sound of the guzheng was clear and pleasant. "Stop!" Mao Xianping suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly. Jiang Qin quickly stopped and looked at Mr. Mao Xianping helplessly. She knew that she had played something wrong again. Mr. Mao Xianping was very strict with his apprentices, and he treated Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin equally. He did not care about their feelings when he reprimanded them. "Jiang Qin, do you know where you went wrong?" Mao Xianping jumped up from the chair, walked to Jiang Qin and asked. Jiang Qin thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, I don't know." If you said you didn't know, the teacher would be angry. If you answered wrong, the teacher would be even angrier. Therefore, Jiang Qin chose an answer that would not make the teacher angry. "What song did you play?" "Zen Heart of Clouds and Water." "What is Zen Heart of Clouds and Water?" The sound of the guzheng was like the gurgling of water, the sparse shadow of the bamboo forest, and the reflection of the spring stone. From the sound of the guzheng, we need to understand the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. I know that you are a new student, so I don't ask you to play the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. But tell me, where are your clouds? Where is the water? There are no clouds and no water. How can it be called Zen Heart of Clouds and Water? Jiang Qin looked ashamed and said, "Mr. Mao, I'm sorry. I was too anxious." Mao Xianping's face softened a little and he shouted, "Guanyu, give us a demonstration." Guanyu walked to Jiang Qin and said with a smile, "Mr. Mao, don't be angry. Junior sister has just come here, and it's already very good for her to achieve such a result. When I first came here, I was not as good as them. At that time, you were so angry that you hit me with a stick. Have you forgotten?" Guanyu looked at Jiang Qin again and said, "Junior sister, don't be nervous. The teacher is strict with you because he has too high expectations for you. If it were an ordinary student, it would be very good if he could learn the skill of plucking and know the whole music score in this period of time. How dare I ask him to play a complete song?" Jiang Qin was very grateful to Guanyu for helping her out. She gave the chair to Guanyu and said with a smile, "Thank you." Guanyu smiled and sat down in front of the guzheng. After adjusting the rhythm of his heart, he gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi, and then his fingers gently stroked the strings of the guzheng, and a beautiful tone jumped out. It had to be said that Guanyu was indeed a bit talented in guzheng. The room was very quiet and everyone was listening carefully. You could see the clouds and water, see the harmony of the clouds and water, and hear the solemn Buddha voice. At the end of the song, everyone applauded warmly. Bao Xinping pointed to Guanyu and said, "There are some flaws. Clouds and water flow slowly, not too fast. If you use too much force, it will not be beautiful." Guanyu quickly stood up and said gratefully, "Thank you for your teaching." Bao Xinping looked at Jiang Qin and asked, "Do you understand?" "Understood." Jiang Qin nodded. Mao Xianping was very satisfied with his disciple's studious attitude and said, "It's good that you understand. The ancients pay attention to having a well-thought-out plan. If you have wind and clouds in your heart, then the music you play will be able to create a storm. You are very talented and I hope you can go further on this path." "Thank you, teacher." Jiang Qin sincerely thanked him. Mao Xianping waved his hand and said, "Okay, go eat." After Mao Xianping left, the students began to pack up their things and went to the bathroom to take a shower and change their clothes. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin changed into sweaters and down jackets and walked out, Guanyu and Huang Yida were already waiting at the door. Guanu stood up and took the initiative to greet the two girls. He said, I just discussed with Ida. Although we are brothers and sisters, we haven't even had a chance to have a meal together after being together for so long. Teacher must be very sad if he knows that our relationship is so estranged. It's me and Ida who didn't do a good job. Two little sisters, how about giving me some face and having a meal together today? Chapter 245. When school reopened, it was normal for new classmates to gather together for a meal. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just entered middle school, Yuan Lin, the rich little girl, took 6 girls in her dormitory to eat at Pizza Hut. A meal that cost a few hundred yuan was really not a negligible amount of money for a middle school student. According to the relationship between the teacher and the teacher, the relationship between Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, Huang Yida, and Guanu was closer than that of their former classmates. Because the 4 of them were disciples of teacher Mao Xianping. They were not only classmates but also fellow apprentices. In the future they should help and take care of each other when they entered society. One must know that in the current entertainment circle, the proportion of students who graduated from the 2 famous schools, Shangying and China Film, was extremely high. They hugged each other and there were many small circles in the big circle. It was easy to become popular by helping each other and hyping each other. Guanu was the senior apprentice brother, so he naturally had the responsibility and obligation to organize the meal. Moreover, he was very good at talking and he even brought up teacher Mao Xianping. If Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin still refused at this time, it was really unreasonable and inexplicable. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and Jiang Qin said with a smile, Okay, this should be done. My treat. What do you want to eat, little sister? Huang Yida put on a cool face, and his forthright manner when he spoke was very likable. It doesn't matter what we eat. Jiang Qin said with a smile. However, we have to invite teacher Mao. Just now, senior apprentice brother Guo said that this is our first gathering. If we don't invite teacher Mao to such a meaningful gathering, how sad will he be? Invite the teacher? Guanu and Huang Yida had a look of rejection. Who would want to eat with the teacher? Yes, we like to eat with the teacher. Yuan Lin said happily. The eyes of the 2 girls became bright. The teacher they liked to eat with was called Fang Yan. I'll make the call. After Jiang Qin said that, he took out his phone from his pocket and dialed Mao Xianping's number. Mao Xianping had just separated from his students. He was a little surprised to receive a call from Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were recommended by Xia Chen. He valued Xia Chen a lot and he valued Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin as well. After listening to Jiang Qin's words, Mao Xianping smiled and thanked him, but he still refused the students' invitation to dinner. He was a very famous musician in the country and had endless social engagements every day. Tonight's dinner had been arranged a week ago. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Qin put his mobile phone into his small bag. He looked at Guanu and said, Senior brother Guo, teacher Mao has no time tonight. Ask us out next time. Then let's eat first. Guanu looked regretful, but he was overjoyed in his heart. That's not good, said Jiang Qin. Since teacher Mao said next time, let's wait until next time. Yuan Lin and I are going to meet a friend. Yes. We made an appointment in advance. Yuan Lin nodded repeatedly. Senior brothers, I'm sorry. The 2 girls jumped away. Guanu and Huang Yida stood in the same place and looked at their backs in a daze. What a smart little girl. Guanu said with a smile. She's young but she has a lot of ideas. She refused us and left us speechless. This is treating us like wolves. Huang Yida said with a bad face, Teacher Mao doesn't have time but they don't have time? Teacher Mao isn't here and they don't even have the guts to have a meal with us? Guanu looked at Huang Xianping with a smile and said, Are you a wolf? What about you? Huang Yida asked. The revolution has not yet succeeded. Comrades still need to work hard. The 2 waved their hands and walked in opposite directions, one on the left and one on the right. Dead leaves fell and a thick layer of leaves piled up on the ground. Not knowing whether the cleaners were too lazy or deliberately adding a touch of romance to the autumn, no one swept the leaves into the trash can. Therefore, the campus couples held hands and stepped on the leaves, making clicking sounds. Every step made people feel happy and joyful. The naughty girl ran on the leaves and with a kick of her toes, countless leaves flew all over the sky. Jiang Qin also liked to kick the leaves. Every step she took, she stepped deeply, and then kicked the leaves in front of her toes out. It was as if she wanted to kick out the troubles in her heart. You don't like them? Yuan Lin took Jiang Qin's hand and walked quietly on her right side. What? Jiang Qin was thinking about her own thoughts and didn't hear her friend's words clearly. Yuan was a little angry and raised her voice and said, I asked you if you don't like Guanyu and Huang Yida. Jiang Qin thought about it and said, it's not that I don't like them, but it's not that I like them. You probably don't like them? Otherwise, why did people say that you refused to have a meal with your classmates? Yuan, you didn't notice that when you were playing the zither, Huang Yida looked at you with a strange look. I noticed it too. When you were playing the zither, Guanyu looked at you with a strange look. It was as if he blinked his eyelashes and there would be tenderness and honey falling out. I thought I was the only one who had such a feeling. It turned out that you also had. Jiang Qin looked at Yuan and said, we are still young, don't think about love. Since we chose to learn classical instruments, since teacher Fang Yan and sister Xia Tian have such high expectations for us, then we must do our best and not let them down. Yuan sneered and said, teacher Fang Yan doesn't have any expectations for us. He said that if we can't hold on, we can pack up and come back at any time. It's not necessary to become a musician. But sister Xia Tian has great expectations for us. She is still learning the zither and she works harder than us. If the object of love is Fang Yan, you won't say that you are too young to fall in love, right? You damn girl, I'll tear your mouth. Jiang Qin angrily rushed towards Yuan. The two girls played in the leaves for a while and then walked side by side again, panting. It's strange, Jiang Qin said. When I was at school, I always felt that those boys were too naive and not as mature as teacher Fang Yan. Now that I'm here, I feel that Guanyu and Huang Yida are really boring to put on airs all day. I think so too. Yuan nodded. Why do I always find them unpleasant? I want to rush up and beat them up. Alas. The two girls sighed softly. I don't know when I can see teacher Fang Wei again, Jiang Qin said. It's the first time I've left home and it's so far away. I really miss Mom's braised pork, Dad's dumplings and Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang said that he is from Yanjing. When the students are on holiday he will come to see us, Yuan comforted. Mr. Fang said that he should solve problems with his head in the future. You did a good job just now, Yuan said. What does he use to solve problems? Fists. The two girls looked at each other and then laughed. Jiang Qin stopped talking, and Yuan also became silent. Hand in hand they walked towards the bustling streets. That way they could show that they were not too lonely in this city. Number 3. Lu Jing, go and stop number 3. Number 28 is going to make a layup, stop him. Huang Haoran, go. In order to cultivate students' moral, intellectual and physical development, the school often held some competitions. The current one was the Rosefinch Senior High School Interschool Basketball Competition. This was the first round of the preliminary competition. According to the rules, the first, second, and third years would each send a team to compete for the title of the school champion. Fang Yan ran to the office to draw lots, but he drew the 9th class and the 11th class, which had the highest basketball level together. The 11th class was a special enrollment class. What was a special enrollment class? It meant that the students had a special skill and could be admitted to Rosefinch Secondary with extra points. Some were good at drawing, some were talented in music, and some were good at calligraphy. Of course, most of them were good at sports, because during the recruitment test if you say you can draw well, then you have to draw well. If you said you were talented in music, then you had to shout. If you said you were good at calligraphy, then you had to write a beautiful essay. However, if you said you were good at sports, as long as you were strong enough, then you had extra points. As a result, several big guys and 1.8-meter-tall men appeared in class 11. When they walked together, it was a beautiful scene in the school. It was a tough game. Class 9 didn't have any good basketball players to begin with, and they couldn't miss school activities either. The team of 5 was barely made up by Fang Yan. The only substitute was only able to make up the team because of his height. He said he couldn't play basketball, but Fang Yan didn't believe him. Or rather, he didn't want to believe him. He tried it on the court and when he got nervous he ran away with the ball in his hands. Fang Yan had to believe it. It was only the third quarter, and the score was already more than 30 points. 58-12. The 9th class 21 points were almost all scored by Huang Haoran alone. He wasn't tall and he was very short-sighted, but his three-point shot was very beautiful. Huang Haoran got the ball again, sprinted and jumped. Fang Yan clenched his fists. He knew that as long as Huang Haoran had a chance to get the ball, he would be able to get the 3 points. Although Fang Yan knew that they were going to lose this game, he didn't want it to end here. He could teach anything, but he would teach his students to give up. Huang Haoran, come on. The cheerleaders finally got a little bit of spirit. They were also stunned by the 11th class. The gap was getting bigger and bigger and their voices were getting smaller and smaller. Finally there was no sound. If it weren't for Fang Yan's strict discipline, they wouldn't want to watch anymore. Huang Haoren raised his arm and his wrist gently hooked. Bang! A giant appeared in front of him and slapped the ball on Huang Haoren's face. Huang Haoren's body fell on the solid concrete floor and he didn't move. Chapter 246. While the others were shocked and at a loss, Fang Yan had already run toward Huang Haoren. He didn't casually carry Huang Haoren's body. He just squatted down and shouted, "Huang Haoren! Huang Haoren!" Huang Haoren finally opened his eyes. With a painful expression on his face he said, "Teacher, he broke the rules." He wanted to raise his right hand to show Fang Yan, but he couldn't lift it. His back hurt badly as if his spine was about to break. Fang Yan didn't need to lift it up to see that Huang Haoren's right hand was purple and red. Even his wrist was swollen. Obviously the guy slapped the back of Huang Haoren's hand. Because he used too much force, Huang Haoren's wrist couldn't bear the heavy pressure and sprained it when he fell to the ground. "He's bleeding, he's bleeding." The students of the 9th class gathered around and looked at Huang Haoren, who was lying on the ground with concern. The back of Huang Haoren's head was smashed, and the blood stained the dark cement. It looked a little shocking. It was good that he could talk. Fang Yan picked up Huang Haoren and said, "I'll take you to deal with it." In order to do a good job of protection, the school doctor patrolled around several competition courts. Seeing an injured team member, he immediately went to the court to treat him. The team doctor was invited by the students. After checking Huang Haoren's wound, he said, "It's no big deal. He still knows how to protect himself. When he fell to the ground, his head was stiff, but the injury on his back is serious. I'm afraid he'll have to rest for a few days." Fang Yan checked Huang Haoren's spine. There was no danger of fracture or dislocation. He said, "It's good that he's fine. It doesn't matter if he rests for a few days." After being busy for a while, Huang Haoren was escorted to the infirmary by the study commissary to disinfect and rest. Fang Yan looked at the bulky student who had slapped Huang Haoren and was now drinking Coke and laughing with his teammates. He walked over and slapped the bulky student's head. Li Hu was angry and shouted angrily, "Why did you hit me? Injuries are unavoidable in a basketball match. I didn't do it on purpose. What right do you have to hit me? So what if he was a teacher? Does that mean teacher can beat people as he pleases?" Tiger Li's teammates were also very angry. A few big guys surrounded Fang Yan in the middle. If there was any disagreement, they would press him down in the middle and give him a beating. Science and technology were getting more and more advanced, but the reverence students had for their teachers and knowledge was getting weaker and weaker. In this day and age, if you dared to run in front of any student and say, "Teacher for a day, father for life," they would spit apple juice at you and call you an idiot. "You want to be my father? It's more like I am your father." Fang Yan's face was very calm. He looked at Tiger Li and said, "I hit your head not because you injured your classmate. Of course, I am really angry about you breaking the rules and injuring your classmate. If you say you didn't mean it, I believe you. However, even if you are playing against each other because of your foul, a classmate fell to the ground and got injured, shouldn't you go over and help him up and apologize? He is not my teammate. He is your classmate, not your enemy. Even if you are standing on the same court, it doesn't mean that you are life and death enemies. Because of your foul, a classmate is lying on the ground bleeding. You are drinking Coke and joking with your classmate. Because the person lying on the ground is not you, the person who is bleeding is not you, so you can have a clear conscience and act without any scruples? I was angry and hit you because of this reason, not because you said it was an unintentional foul that caused a student to get injured. Mr. Fang, what you said is too much." A middle-aged man wearing a Rockets jersey was sitting under a tree. He was dismissive of Fang Yan's words. "It is normal to get injured in a basketball game. Even in the NBA, don't big-name stars often get injured and have to have surgery? They're still kids, so it's understandable that they don't think about things as comprehensively. If you use your own standards to demand things from them and then use your identity as a teacher to beat someone up, do you believe that I'll go to the school and report that you're physically punishing students?" The person who spoke was Gu Sini, the homeroom teacher of class 11. He is also a basketball enthusiast and usually fights with people. From his outfit today, it can be seen that he should be a die-hard supporter of the Rockets. Gu Sini doesn't like Fang Yan very much. The first reason is naturally because of jealousy. They were all the homeroom teachers of the Year 1 students. Why was it that they were unknown while the newcomer, Fang Yan, stood out from the rest and his name was known by everyone in the school? Moreover, the school leaders asked Fang Yan to give a lecture to the first-year students. This is undoubtedly a slap in the face of all the first-year teachers. In the eyes of the school leaders, he is far better than the teachers. What was even more depressing was that the total score of Class 9 was not that far behind that of Class 11, but after Fang Yan's arrival, Class 1's Chinese and literature became the first in the whole grade, even surpassing Class 1, the top class. Their scores in other subjects also improved significantly, and their overall score was ranked in the top 5 in the whole school. The school leaders said at the teachers' meeting that it is not just the number of the class that is ranked at the bottom. Look at Class 9, isn't it a good example? The faces of the homeroom teachers at the back of Class 9 darkened on the spot. It is not that they don't work hard. They also want their students to be in the top 3 in the whole grade. However, how can it be so easy? When you are working hard, others are also working hard, okay? The homeroom teachers in front of Class 9 looked even more embarrassed. What does this mean? At that time, the students were divided according to their grades. Now the students at the back of the line are in front of them. Doesn't this mean that they are incompetent? At that time, Fang Yan was also sitting at the meeting, and he could feel the murderous look in everyone's eyes. The Norwegian fishing boat returned to the harbor, but the sardines caught by the fishermen were already dead. Only the sardines caught by Hans were still alive. It turned out that Hans put a few catfish, the natural enemy of the sardines, into the transport trough together with the sardines. Because catfish eat meat, the sardines became nervous after being put into the trough. In order to avoid being eaten by their natural enemy, the sardines desperately swam, thus preserving their strong vitality so they survived. If the other teachers are compared to sardines, then Fang Yan is the catfish in the fish trough. The school leaders hope that Fang Yan can stir up the competition in the school even more, and Fang Yan does not mind being such a catfish. If every teacher thinks about how to improve the academic performance of the students will benefit in the end. This is also what Fang Yan wants to see. Gu Xini hates Fang Yan more than the other teachers, because his uncle was implicated in Fang Yan's incident and was transferred. Gu Xini's uncle, Gu Yunfan, is the logistics director of Rosefinch Secondary, which is the most lucrative position in the school. This is because when Fang Yan entered the school, he assigned Fang Yan a utility room with a leaky roof. In fact, Fang Yan really did not take this matter seriously, and he has never even seen Gu Yunfan. However, after a series of power struggles and changes in ownership, Rosefinch High is now owned by the former vice principal, Lu Chaoga. After Lu Chaoga left Rosefinch, Fang Yan became Lu Chaoga's spokesperson in the school. Moreover, there are rumors that Lu Chaoga is the mysterious woman behind Fang Yan. Therefore, Gu Yunfan's position as the logistics director is not suitable. After the school leaders' research and adjustment, Gu Yunfan is now the vice chairman of the school's education committee. A position with a low level, low salary, and almost no authority. Gu Yunfan is holding back his anger in his heart, and scolds Fang Yan several times at home. Gu Xini is Gu Yunfan's nephew, and he can enter Rosefinch because of Gu Yunfan's support. Without such a big backer, his heart naturally hates Fang Yan. Fang Yan feels Gu Xini's hostility towards him, but he thinks that he is too good to be pleasing to the eye. Who asked him to be the natural enemy of sardines? Fang Yan looked at Gu Xini with a serious face and said, "Teacher Gu, you can't say that. A great person said that education should start from a child, and the quality of students should be taught from an early age. This has nothing to do with the student's age, and it has a close relationship with whether he has the quality of unity in helping each other. Melt at the age of 4 and Huang Xiang at the age of 9, know how to use the fan to warm the quilt." Teacher Gu said that NBA teams often have players who get injured because of fouls and need surgery, but I have also seen players pull up players who don't belong to the same team from the ground. Can't they just pull up their classmate and say hello out of concern? If this is the case, what is the point of us working so hard to pass on knowledge to them? What is the point of such students to our society as a whole? Hearing Fang Yan's words, the other students also echoed in agreement. Yes. This is clearly a performance of lack of quality. This is not playing basketball at all, this is beating people. Huang Haoren's hand is swollen from their beating. The students of Class 9 also gathered around. Tangqing stood behind Li Hu. As long as Fang Yan gave him a look, he could put down this group of guys in the shortest time. Gu Xini knew that his students couldn't stand on the side of reason, so he said angrily, "Li Hu is wrong. Didn't you already teach him a lesson? Now it's a basketball game, do you still want to play? If you want to play, quickly send someone up. If you don't play, we will win this game. Who wants to talk so much with you?" Tangqing. Fang Yan shouted. Yes. Tangqing responded and walked in front of Fang Yan. "You go up." Fang Yan said. "I don't want to?" Tangqing said with a bitter face. "It's boring to play with them. Isn't this bullying? I want to win this game. Also, from now on, don't let them take a single point." Fang Yen said. If they don't realize their mistake, I will never give this victory to them. Gu Xini sneered and said, basketball is a sport for 5 people. So what if Tangqing plays well alone? Chapter 247. Tangqing made a 3-pointer from the distance. Swish. The ball went in. Tangqing dribbled the ball past people. He passed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoosh. The ball went in. Tangqing jumped up and dunked. 2 people jumped up from the left and right sides to intercept. Li Hu roared, don't even think about it. He jumped up from the front and used his strong body to hit Tangqing. Clang. The ball went into the basket fiercely. Li Hu's body was knocked to the ground. Until this time, Tangqing's body landed lightly on the ground. He flipped his hair back in a carefree and unrestrained manner, not even a drop of sweat falling down. This made Tangqing feel a little regretful. If he shook his hair to shake off a few drops of sweat, the effect would be better. Of course, for him this was enough. Tangqing, Tangqing, Tangqing. The cheers of the students almost overturned the court. Tangqing's name resounded throughout the campus. There were also countless students rushing towards the court. Of course, most of them were girls. Tangqing was originally Rosefinch's most handsome boy, but he was usually low-key. He rarely showed his talent in any aspect. Today, under the pressure of Fang Yen, he ran to play basketball. Then the girl's blood and passion were instantly ignited. Handsome facial features, strong body, extreme speed when running, elegance when dribbling the ball, dominance when doing a slam dunk. God, how could there be such a handsome boy? They fainted. The girls felt that they had difficulty breathing and lost all their strength. Tangqing was originally unwilling to play. As a warrior who practiced internal martial arts, he felt that playing basketball with these guys was bullying. This was also the reason why he was absent from this game. Before, Fang Yen did not think of letting Tangqing play because Tangqing would lose his competitive spirit when he played. He could win the whole game by himself. The existence of other teammates was meaningless. At that time, this competition would become his own game, and it would be quite boring for the others to play. However, after Huang Haoren got injured, Fang Yen decided to teach those who didn't know how to respect others a lesson. If they don't reflect on their actions, they don't deserve the glory of victory. Sure enough, after Tangqing left the stage, the situation became one-sided. Li Hu fell to the concrete floor under the blue net. The basketball fell from the blue net and landed heavily on his body. Li Hu gasped for air, feeling his heart beating fiercely. He looked at Tangqing with fear in his eyes. It was too terrifying. It was too terrifying. He couldn't stop him if he wanted to, couldn't catch up to him if he wanted to, couldn't jump high if he wanted to, and couldn't win if he wanted to. This was the first time he felt so powerless on the court. They were like a group of children, and Tangqing was like a giant among a group of children. Although they looked stronger and taller than Tangqing, they were not on the same level as Tangqing. Tangqing alone was enough. Tangqing did it alone. This was the thought of everyone in the stadium. When the ball was in their hands, Tangqing sprinted and the ball was in his hands. Then he ran quickly and left them in the dust. Finally, he scored successfully. When the ball was in Tangqing's hands, Tangqing ran quickly. They couldn't catch up with his speed at all, and then they watched him score successfully. In the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, Tangqing scored 39 points alone. He almost didn't waste time. He took the ball and ran, grabbed the ball to attack, didn't look at the long shot, and turned and ran after the shot. When Li Hu and the others were still staring at the trajectory of the basketball and praying that the ball wouldn't go in, he had already run to the side to defend. The only thing the Class 11 players could do was to waste more time when they were serving or dribbling the ball. They wanted to finish the third quarter as soon as possible. It was too exciting and they felt that they couldn't bear it. Moreover, as Fang Yen said after Tangqing played, the Class 11 players didn't get a single point. Except when they were serving, they didn't even have a chance to touch the basketball. The muscles on Gu Xini's face twitched and he roared angrily, "This is cheating. It's cheating with Kung Fu." Fang Yen sneered and said, "You don't even know what Kung Fu is and you say it's cheating? Ordinary people can't do it at all." "Yes, Kung Fu is to make ordinary people superhuman," Fang Yen said. "Strengthening the body is also Kung Fu. Improve your speed, exercise your physique, strengthen your jumping ability. As long as Tangqing doesn't foul, everything he does on the court is reasonable. If possible, I hope that every player in the Chinese football team knows Kung Fu. Then they can go out of Asia to the world and win every World Cup. At that time, will the opponents from other countries say that it's a foul just because they know Kung Fu? Unreasonable." Gu Xini left angrily. He didn't want to watch the game anymore. Fang Yen looked at the Class 9 students around Tangqing thoughtfully. It seems that it's time to let them develop morally, intellectually and physically. In the principal's office, Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Fang Yan and said, "It's just a game, the students are injured, it's not good." "It's because the students were injured, that's why I'm so angry," Fang Yan explained. "Principal Zhang, you know I'm not a stingy man. Even though Director Gu assigned me a utility room, I never held a grudge against him. I didn't expect that they would hold a grudge against me. Isn't this unfair to me? How can there be absolute fairness in this world?" Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. "Tell me, what do you want to do?" "I want to change the morning self-study time to sports training," Fang Yan said. Zhang Xiaofeng pondered for a moment and said, "The school has 2 PE classes every week, and there is a break every morning. Principal Zhang, 2 PE classes a week is absolutely not enough. It doesn't improve the student's physique. Everyone should be lazy during the 20-minute break, and it's easy to be perfunctorily passed by them. What's your idea?" "I want to take them to learn Tai Chi," Fang Yan said. "Tai Chi has a good effect of strengthening the body, and the movements are gentle, neither too fast nor too slow. It won't let the students do difficult movements and cause strain. It can dredge the meridians, eliminate stress, concentrate the spirit, and improve the student's learning ability." Zhang Xiaofeng thought for a while and said, "I can't promise you, because it's too risky. Even if I'm the principal of the school, I don't have the right to change the students' learning subjects at will. However, you can try it in Class 9. If the effect is really obvious, we will report it to the leader and promote it to the whole school." "Thank you, Principal Zhang," Fang Yan said. This was the purpose of his coming. He didn't think about implementing it to the whole school at once. There was always a gradual process of doing things. After Fang Yan left, Zhang Xiaofeng sat on the chair and thought for a while. He called the secretary in and said, "Please invite the vice principals to my office to discuss the job transfer of Comrade Gu Yunfan." Gu Yunfan secretly held a grudge against Fang Yan. Gu Xini, because he didn't like Fang Yan, actually took the initiative to provoke the students of the 2 classes. This made Zhang Xiaofeng very dissatisfied. Presumably, Fang Yan also had a lot of anger in his heart. Although Fang Yan didn't put forward any suggestions on how to deal with Gu Yunfan, it seemed that nothing had happened. However, since Lu Chaoga put him in this position, he would help Fang Yan solve some unnecessary troubles. Fang Yan said that he wasn't a stingy person. However, in Zhang Xiaofeng's heart, he didn't believe Fang Yan's words. Where there are people, there is Jianghu. Where there is Jianghu, there is fighting. The school was no exception. The next day after the game, during the students' morning reading time, Fang Yan took the students to the playground to run. Fang Yan's plan was to run for 10 minutes to exercise, and then take the students to learn Tai Chi in the rest of the time. Fang Yan, who was dressed in white, took the students in white to run and practice Tai Chi, which once again became a hot topic of discussion in the school. 1 tael of gold for 1 incense. The best incense was more expensive than gold. The office was spacious but also simple. There wasn't even a desk, a chair, or even a bookcase. Most of the space was blank. However, in a copper stove in the corner of the room, spices that were more expensive than gold were burning. A graceful and beautiful young woman was lying on a chair, casually flipping through a fashion magazine. The office door was pushed open, and a woman in black walked in with her head held high. She didn't say a word and just handed over the folder that she had prepared in her hand. The young woman took the folder and glanced at it. She said indifferently, "No matter how cunning a fox is, it can't hide the stench on its body. Give the kid a copy of the folder." The woman in black was stunned and said, "They dared to make a move on Mississippi, don't we need to directly eliminate them?" The woman closed the magazine in her hand and put it on the table in front of her. She said, "Aren't we already doing this? But he's only one person. If he can't even do this kind of thing well, what right does he have to bear my daughter's love?" The young woman asked. "Etienne has never been wronged like this before, never. If he were to take revenge, Etienne would probably be happier, right? What woman doesn't want the man she likes to kill the demon that imprisoned her?" "I understand." The woman in black responded and left with the folder. The young woman stood up and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. The light was bright and beautiful, and her temperament was otherworldly. However, her eyes were bitingly cold and fierce. She was very angry. Chapter 248. Are you saying that you and Chaoga aren't in that kind of relationship? Grandma looked disappointed. She had only taken 2 bites of the porridge in her bowl, and she had already lost her appetite. Putting down her bowl and chopsticks, she looked at Fang Yan eagerly, waiting for him to explain. No. Fang Yan shook his head. He was having a good time himself. He used to be afraid that his grandpa would pull him into the study to test him on strange knowledge and talk about principles that he would never understand. After Fang Yin became a teacher himself, he no longer had to worry about that. Grandpa would still test him on some obscure knowledge and talk about principles that would never go out of style. However, he no longer had any feelings of rejection or fear. If he could answer the questions, he would answer them properly. If he couldn't, he would humbly ask Grandpa for advice. He no longer hated the principles that he had disdained before, and he could even chew on some of them. Fang Yin reflected on the question carefully and tried to find the answer. The answer he came up with surprised even himself. He had grown up. In the past, when he faced his grandfather, he avoided it with the mentality of a child of the younger generation. Every kid was afraid of their elders. Now that he was facing his grandfather, he was interacting and treating him as an equal adult. "How can I not be?" said his grandma. "Chowga is such a good girl and I like the two of you from the bottom of my heart. Do you not like her or does she not like you? If she doesn't like you, you can try harder. A good girl is afraid of a clingy man. That's how your grandpa got me." Lu Wang, who was eating his porridge, choked. After coughing violently a few times, he said to his wife in dissatisfaction, "Let's talk about the children. Why are you bringing up our old stuff?" Grandma was very angry that Grandpa had called the old story of how he had pursued her in the past. She took away all the dishes on the table and said, "I'm just giving an example. Why are you so sensitive about it? The things in the past were all old seeds and grains. But today the old seeds and grains were not going to serve you. I'll be taking these appetizers away, you can let the new sesame seeds and new grains serve you." You old woman. Although Lu Gong had a stubborn temper, he was extremely tolerant and considerate to his wife. He didn't smile at outsiders, but he accompanied his wife to go grocery shopping every day. Now that his wife was angry, he also realized that he had said something wrong and said, "Why should we get involved in the affairs of young people?" Lu Gong was very cunning. He changed the topic to Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga. Sure enough, his grandmother was fooled and said, "Can I not get involved? I've always treated Chaoga as my granddaughter-in-law, but she's gone just like that. Who wouldn't be angry after encountering something like this?" She then stared at Fang Yin and said, "I wasn't before, but that doesn't mean I won't be in the future. You're not married and neither is little Lu. Just as well. If you don't like her, I'll have to talk to you. You don't even like Chaoga? What kind of person are you looking for?" After a pause, his grandmother looked at Fang Yin in horror and said, "You can't possibly like that female student, right?" "What female student?" Fang Yin was surprised. "Don't try to fool me. I've asked around. It said that you have a good relationship with a girl whose surname is Qin. Fang Yin, let me tell you, she's still a child. You're a teacher now and a teacher should act like a model. Don't hurt others or yourself." Fang Yin wanted to bang his head against the wall and said, "Grandma, I know who the female student you're talking about is. But I just treat her as my student and she treats me as her teacher. We have a very pure teacher-student relationship." Was it really like that? Fang Yin felt a little guilty. Moreover, there had been no news from Qin Tian since that day when he disappeared. Was she doing well? Fang Yin felt a little sad. "Is it really like that?" His grandmother asked suspiciously. "I heard it from someone else's mouth. I heard that you two have a scandal. I also have a scandal with Lu Chaoga. You must have heard it too, right?" Fang Yin said grumpily. "Yes, I heard it. Your grandpa and I thought you two were a couple because of the scandal," his grandmother said. "Besides, you're living in the same house. Why can't you be a couple?" "I'll ask Chaoga to come to our house for dinner tomorrow and I'll talk to her," his grandmother said. "You don't have to worry about it." Fang Yin felt even more depressed. How could he not care that his grandmother was looking for a wife for him? However, he wouldn't argue with his grandmother. He just needed to make things clear. Why should he make things too intense and hurt the old lady's feelings? After dinner, Fang Yin ran away in a panic. He was no longer afraid of his grandpa but of his grandmother, who kept urging him to solve the problem of his life. Every morning he would take his students for a morning run, do Tai Chi, go to class on time, go to Qingfeng Tea House for tea and go to his grandpa's house for dinner. Fang Yan's life was peaceful and comfortable. As the days went by, it was hard to notice the passage of time. If it weren't for the fact that the decisive battle between Fang Yan and the Chiba army was getting closer and closer, Bailey Lu came. When Fang Yan came back from his grandma's house for dinner, he was standing in the yard waiting for him. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, the two cowards, were accompanying him. Fang Yan didn't want to ask him how he avoided the security at the school gate and accurately found the courtyard where he lived. It was not a difficult thing for people like them. He was just curious about why Bailey Lu, who had been beaten by him last time, now took the initiative to wander in front of him. Seeing Fang Yan come in, Bailey Lu grinned. His hair was cut and his clothes were changed. He no longer looked like a savage who ran out of Shenangjia, and he didn't have the disgusting sour smell on him. He looked fresh and bright when he smiled, and he looked like a very attractive man. However, he still had those annoying big mustaches. Bailey Lu saw Fang Yan come back and said, "You're finally back." Fang Yan looked him up and down and said, "You've cut your hair and changed your clothes? I don't remember that you won against me last time. Going back on your word is not what people in Jianghu do, right? Last time, I stood on the top of the mountain and shouted at you for a long time. I asked you to go up and fight with me for 300 rounds. You didn't go up. So I won," Bailey Lu explained. "You've become shameless." Fang Yan sighed softly in his heart. How could a disciple of a famous martial arts school become such a rascal? "I learned it from you," Bailey Lu said with a proud face. "After learning it, I found that being a rascal is much more relaxing and pleasant than being a good man who keeps his word. I've decided to take this kind of rascal route in the future." Fang Yan was too lazy to talk to this guy who followed him and ate his dust. He asked, "Say it. What are you doing here?" "I'm here to challenge you," Bailey Lu said. Fang Yan's eyes turned cold and he said, "Are you serious? I'm standing in front of you. How can I not be serious?" Before Bailey Lu's voice died away, he had already rushed towards Fang Yan. Since he wanted to be a rascal, he would be a rascal to the end. Attacking first without greeting was the style of a rascal. Bailey Lu did not bring his big wine pot this time, but his fists were waving vigorously. A pair of iron fists were clenched and smashed towards Fang Yan's head. One punch could probably smash Fang Yan's head into pieces. Fang Yan also took the initiative to rush towards Bailey Lu. He did not use the advantage of Tai Chi to overcome hardness with softness. Instead, he met force with force and wanted to send Bailey Lu flying with a heavy punch. Boom, their fists collided. Bailey Lu's feet did not move, but the shoes under his feet rolled up the bluestone bricks on the ground. The bricks flew in the air as if there was something on the ground that pushed them up with great force. Clang, Bailey Lu's back knocked down several pots of flowers and plants. Fang Yan's body trembled as he watched. This guy had to beat him up. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain to Lu Chaoga, the woman who was crazy about flowers. Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan, who was standing in the same place and looking at him angrily. He laughed wildly and said, "That was fun. Let's do it again." As soon as his voice fell, his body rushed towards Fang Yan again. Fang Yan was not polite. His body rushed straight towards Bailey Lu. Bailey Lu's fist hit Fang Yan's chest, and Fang Yan's hook hit Bailey Lu's stomach. Although Bailey Lu had the title of Divine Fist, his strength was not as good as Fang Yan's. Bailey Lu's body retreated, and Fang Yan closed in step by step. Seeing that Bailey Lu was about to retreat to the corner of the courtyard wall, Fang Yan kicked out with lightning speed. Clang. Bailey Lu's body hit the courtyard wall firmly. Kacha, kacha. The dust on the courtyard wall shook off and then a large number of cracks appeared. Fang Yan's fist was still pressed on Bailey Lu's stomach, and he pushed back heavily. The courtyard wall collapsed and a big hole appeared. Bailey Lu was actually punched out of the courtyard by Fang Yan. Dust flew and even the plants on the wall fell. Bailey Lu fell to the ground, and the bricks and various green plants that fell later buried his body. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan both gasped at the same time. This was a school. Was it really okay for them to fight like this? Fang Yan did not stop. He lifted the well cover in the courtyard with both hands and threw it at the stone mountain where Bailey Lu was lying. Boom! The well cover was too heavy and it crushed a lot of bricks and plants. If it was an ordinary person, his bones would have been crushed. This big well cover was on the top, which was equivalent to burying Bailey Lu alive. Chapter 249. The pile of stones was silent, as if Bailey Lu had been killed by the heavy manhole cover. However, Fang Yan was still vigilant. Even Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan did not believe that Bailey Lu had been killed by Junior Martial Uncle just like that. They stood behind Fang Yan and looked at the movement under the pile of stones from a distance. Boom! It was earth-shattering. The patio cover on the top suddenly bounced up and flew high into the sky with the whistling sound of the wind. The bricks that covered Bailey Lu's body also flew up, entangling and hitting each other. A huge body stood up straight from the ground. With a kick of his feet, he jumped high into the air. Bailey Lu did not let them down. He jumped very high and grabbed the patio cover that was about to fall from the highest point. He held the patio cover with both hands and moved his feet in the air. He rushed towards Fang Yan, who was standing in the yard. He flew over the courtyard wall and held the patio cover with both hands. He rode on the clouds and rode on the mist with great momentum. The patio cover was his weapon of attack. He was going to use the cover to kill Fang Yan directly. Whoosh! The wind was howling and the broken branches on the ground were blown up. Fallen leaves fluttered in the air like countless butterflies dancing around Fang Yan. Fang Yan stood where he was and prepared to take this attack head-on. Fang Yan, go to hell! Bailey Lu roared. He took advantage of the situation from above. He swung the patio cover and smashed it hard towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan punched upwards with both of his fists, and both of his fists landed on the manhole cover. Clang! Fang Yan's body became shorter for no reason. The stone slabs under his feet could not withstand the strong gravity and were crushed into powder by him. Not only that, under the constant pressure of Bailey Lu in the sky, Fang Yan's body continued to drill into the soil. Now he was up to his knees. Fang Yan's 2 heavy punches landed on the patio cover, and 2 large holes appeared on the cover. His hands were pierced through the holes as if he had made a natural chain for himself. Bailey Lu was suspended in the air, and his whole body was pressed against the patio cover. He wanted to punch Fang Yan's whole body into the soil. Exerting all his strength, he found it impossible to do so. Therefore he swung his fist and smashed it against the patio cover. Fang Yan was a nail and his fist was a nail. He was going to hammer the nails into the soil with a hammer. Fang Yan retracted his fist and punched again. Clang! Both of them swung their fists at the patio at the same time. The patio cover instantly shattered into tiny stones, and the place where they punched was also smashed into stone powder. Fang Yan's body sank again, but Bailey Lu's body was punched into the sky. Fang Yan threw the half-stone cover in his hand toward Bailey Lu in the sky. Then he exerted his strength and his whole body bounced up from the deep pit. He tiptoed and flew toward Bailey Lu, who was about to land. Clang! Fang Yan kicked Bailey Lu away. Bang! Bailey Lu punched Fang Yan's stomach, and Fang Yan's body flew into the air. Crack! Fang Yan lifted Bailey Lu's body and smashed him against a sweet-scented osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The osmanthus tree broke, and Bailey Lu's body fell to the ground with most of the branches. Bailey Lu's face was swollen, and his eyes were like panda eyes. There was a big cut on his forehead and blood dyed his cheeks and neck red. Fang Yan was also in a sorry state. His clothes were torn and tattered. He looked like a freshly baked brother sharp when he went out. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were afraid of getting involved, so they hid in the room and didn't dare to come out. They just peeped at the fight through the window. Fang Yan and Bailey Lu fell to the ground, panting. The blood on Bailey Lu's forehead flowed into his mouth, but he didn't intend to wipe it off. He said, I know you were injured some time ago and I know you're angry. I know you need to vent your anger to face the challenge of the Qinyar army. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan can't do it. They're not strong enough. I'll come over and fight with you. I'll let you beat me up. Do you feel better now? You've vented your anger, haven't you? We're on the same side and it's just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. Even the Japanese dared to bully us. We can't be careless about this. Beat them until even their mothers can't recognize them. There's nothing I can do to help you. I'll give you some confidence. Bailey Lu got up from the ground and said, I usually think you're annoying but this time I hope you win. Bailey Lu walked away. Bailey Lu was covered in wounds. It was hard to tell where his nose and eyes were, but he held his head high and chest out, as if he were the proudest man in the world. If he hadn't leaned forward and almost fallen when he crossed the threshold of the small courtyard, he would have been a very charming chivalrous man. Fang Yan lay on the ground and didn't get up. He looked at the stars in the sky with a happy smile on his face. His body was also covered in wounds, but at this moment he was extremely calm. Fang Yingying called home to ask for help, but it was Yi Ro who came, which proved that his family was still very angry at him for running away. Yi Ro was seriously injured in the fight with the Chiba barracks. Fang Yan knew how powerful Yi Ro was. He had never won in so many years of competition, which could prove a lot of things. Even Yi Ro couldn't beat him. How high was the kendo cultivation of the Chiba barracks? Could he really beat him? Zhang Yuan was attacked by the arsenal. Qin Yitian's life was unknown, and he was shot and bleeding. They didn't give him any information about Qin Yitian, but they sent him a document. They wanted to kill all the people in the document by himself. Fang Yan was very tired. He was also very scared. He was afraid of losing and death. He was also afraid that he would be laughed at because he couldn't beat the Chiba barracks if he lost and died. He was such a proud man. He wanted to escape in refuse. He wanted to hug the thigh of the Chiba barracks and say, I have a good family and will soon have children. Can we not fight? However, he couldn't do that. He could do that to Yi Rou, to Bailey Lu, to the old drunkard, to Tangqing, to anyone in Wuxia, but he couldn't do that to the Chiba barracks. As Bailey Lu said, if they fought among themselves, it was just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. However, if he lost to the Chiba barracks, then the reputation of all the men in the martial world of Wuxia would be tarnished. If he escaped, then all the men in Wuxia would be disgraced. Therefore, Fang Yan wouldn't give in at all. He not only wanted to win, but he wanted to win fair and square. He was going to fight with his life. He was going to gamble with his life. However, he was also very, very angry. The Chiba barracks, you bastard, you big turtle, you old monster, why did you come to me? Why didn't you choke to death when you drank water? Why didn't you eat too much? Why didn't you walk to death? Why didn't you cut off your head when you practiced swordsmanship? Bailey Lu came at the right time and it was necessary. After this battle, he felt refreshed. Now he didn't care about his family's attitude or Qin Etienne's physical condition. No matter what, he had to complete the task given by the Qin family. There was only one thought in his mind: to defeat the Chiba barracks. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan finally came out. When they saw the big hole in the courtyard wall, both of them showed expressions of lingering fear. This made Fang Yan very regretful. Why did he give them the words heroes as their names? It was such a good word, but it had been ruined by these two cowards. Junior Marshal Uncle was lying on the ground, and they didn't dare to stand. Fang Yingying was lying on the left side of Fang Yan, and Fang Haohan was lying on the right side of Fang Yan. Fang Yingying said, Bailey Lu is a good person, but his character is a little bad. Bailey Lu said that Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were not good enough because they were not strong enough. This sentence offended both Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. They decided that they would never play with a guy like Bailey Lu, who spoke ill of others in front of others. Actually, Fang Yingxiong and I also thought of sending ourselves up to be beaten up by Little Uncle Master. However, we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to appease Little Uncle Master's anger after being beaten up. Heroes, heroes? Fang Yan looked at the brightest star in the sky and said, Tell me honestly, do you think I can defeat the Chiba barracks? Fang Yingying said without thinking, Of course. In my heart, Junior Marshal Uncle is invincible. Not to mention the Chiba barracks, even if the father of the Chiba barracks came, he would be killed by Junior Marshal Uncle with one slap. I know. You mean that I can only beat the father of the Chiba barracks, right? Fang Yan asked. You had to listen to the words of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan skillfully. Otherwise you wouldn't understand what they meant at all. Fang Yingying touched his nose awkwardly and said, Anyway, I think Junior Marshal Uncle must win. I think so too, Fang Haohan echoed. Fang Yan sighed softly and said, You don't think that I can beat the Chiba barracks? Otherwise, why would you go and use that kind of trick on him? I am your Junior Marshal Uncle, so you have to stand on my side and cheer me up. Yi Rou thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so she came. Bailey Lu also thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so he came. My parents, grandpa, and the old drunkard all think that I can't beat the Chiba barracks. So they didn't say anything. Everyone thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, but no one stopped me from fighting him. They don't want me to die, but they can only watch me die. To be honest, I'm not angry at all. If the Chiba barracks challenged Yi Rou wouldn't have backed down. If he challenged Bailey Lu wouldn't have backed down. As long as he challenges the warriors of Wuxia, no one will back down. Martial arts are in the East, and the martial soul is in Wuxia. This is not stupidity but pride from the depths of our bones. Yes, we are so proud. Even if they were to die in battle, they would not show any signs of retreat or fear towards them. These things should only be shown on them. Fang Yingying, Fang Haohan, if I die, don't be sad for me, Fang Yan said softly, his face shining. Because I will die with pride. Fang Yingying's eyes were wet and he said in a choked voice, I know, I won't be sad, I will be proud of Junior Marshal Uncle. Fang Haohan's face was full of tears, and his hands tightly grasped the grass on the ground, turning the fresh grass into grass pulp with a fragrant smell, and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, you are Mayan hero's idol in the past, in the future, and always. Fang Yan nodded with satisfaction and said, That's it. Practice hard and help me take care of my parents. Don't think about challenging the Chiba barracks to avenge me. If you have the chance, kill his son, Chiba barracks. Chapter 250. Death is like a lamp going out. This saying is wrong. A lamp could be lit again if it was extinguished, but if a person died and was lit, they would become a jar of bone ash. Therefore Fang Yan cherished his life very much. Whoever wanted him dead, he would make them die a horrible death. Since there was no way out, Then he would move forward with a fearless attitude. Fang Yan knew that if he died he would definitely die. Yi Gentle would immediately challenge the Chiba military, then Bailey Lu or Madman Bai from the Bai family, Ho Zhendong or anyone else. It would be fine if the Chiba military lost, but if they won they wouldn't be able to return to Japan alive. Although he was unlucky, the fate of the Chiba military division was even more miserable. After understanding this, Fang Yan became happy again. With the knot in his heart resolved, Fang Yan became the normal Fang Yan again. Fang Yan was knowledgeable, witty, and incisive. Plus, he knew how to motivate his students. In his class there was endless laughter and cheerful chatter. All of the students liked Fang Yan's classes. Even the language teachers who attended his classes a few times had to admit that Fang Yan was indeed a very good teacher. Fang Yan tried not to look at the back row of the classroom because there was an empty seat there that was very eye-catching. The weather was getting colder and colder, and the students had all changed into winter clothes. In another 2 months, it would be winter vacation, and Fang Yan was about to end his first semester of classes. When the bell rang, the students went out to exercise. After taking a sip of tea, Fang Yan walked to the back of the classroom and sat down beside Chiba Kaori. Chiba Kaori had a sweet appearance and a gentle personality. She wore the custom-made rosefinch uniform, which was very lethal. Although Chiba Kaoru had not been here for long, she was rather popular in school. Some people said that she was the second most beautiful girl in Rosefinch High School. Except for Qin Tian, no one was more beautiful than her. Some people thought that she was even prettier than Qin Tian, because Qin Tian's aura was so strong that they didn't dare to approach him. However, Chiba Kaori was more like an ordinary person. At the very least, they wouldn't feel pressured or nervous when talking to her, and they even dared to joke around with her. Who would dare to joke around with Qin Tian? Fang Yan took Chiba Kaoru's beautifully packaged Chinese textbook and asked, "Is there anything you don't understand?" "There are many things I don't understand." Chiba Kaori shook her head. The main problem was the language barrier and the cultural differences between countries. Of course, after I understood the meaning of that paragraph, all the problems would be easily solved. It'll just take a little more time. Because you came from Japan, you have to learn more things and put in more effort. Fang Yan said in a calm and gentle voice, like a teacher discussing learning problems with his students. Of course that was the truth. I know that your real hobby is the tea ceremony and you put most of your energy into it. This isn't a bad thing. On the contrary, I hope that there will be more students like you in our class. Only when you love something to the bone will you be willing to sacrifice your most precious time and unfathomable sincerity for it. Only then can you become the most outstanding talent in this field. Become the king. If you just want to improve your tea ceremony skills, you only need to learn from Qin Tian or other tea ceremony experts. You don't need to waste time learning Chinese, mathematics, and Wuxia's politics and history that you're not interested in at all. I've seen your papers and I can tell from your handwriting that you hate them. But you did it. You don't just want to learn the tea ceremony, you also want to solve a question in your heart. What kind of Wuxia's culture can give birth to a talent like Qin Tian? Yes. Chiba Kaori didn't deny it. Teacher, I have to go back to Japan eventually. When I return, I will become a tea ceremony master and a teacher. I will explain to them the long history of Wuxia's tea ceremony culture, as well as historical allusions that I'm not interested in, and what we should learn and comprehend from them. Not only do I want to improve their skills, but I also need to enrich their brains. I'll never forget the scene when I had a tea competition with Qin Tian. She came over in a domineering manner and gave me her rootless water without hesitation. She wasn't afraid of losing to me and she never thought about losing to me. I was stuck in a dead end and couldn't get out. I always thought that her tea ceremony cultivation was higher than mine, and her skills were better than mine. Later, I realized that she was more confident than me. That kind of confidence came from her beautiful appearance, from her noble temperament and huge aura, and even more so from her knowledge and cultivation. This was truly invincible. She's been nurtured by 5,000 years of culture. How can I defeat such an opponent? Fang Yan's eyes lit up. He knocked on the table with his finger and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Chiba Kaori." "Thank you," Chiba Kaori said with a smile. "Mr. Fang, you're a proud person. You're not afraid that I'll take away your knowledge and culture. Every expression and every action of yours is telling me, we're no match for you. It's infuriating and exasperating." "Chiba Kaori, you don't understand. We have 5,000 years of cultural accumulation. We have fertile land that extends as far as the eye can see. We have 1.3 billion people with great talents. I'm just a small pearl among them, but we have many more seeds that people are looking forward to. They're taking root, sprouting, and will soon grow into towering trees. You can take away my knowledge, but you can't take away all of Wuxia's knowledge. You can take away the culture that you can see with your naked eyes, but you can't take away the culture that flows in our bones and blood. Fang Yin said proudly. This is Wuxia's soul. As long as this soul exists, Wuxia will always be able to stand among the world's most powerful countries. We're not afraid of the wind, the rain, or the storm. As long as we're given a bit of soil and a bit of opportunity, we can take root and sprout into the most beautiful flower. Look around you. Look at your feet. Isn't that the truth? Chiba Kaori's expression dimmed, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at Fang Yin with a burning gaze and asked, Mr. Fang, you just said that only when you love something in your bones can you disregard everything for it. Do you love martial arts? Yes, Fang Yin said with absolute certainty. For a long time I hated it. I even wanted to abandon it and distance myself from it. However, because I'm a woman, I had no choice but to approach it and understand it. However, recently I suddenly understood that I love it. I love it beyond redemption. It's because I care too much that I have higher expectations of myself. Rather than others being disappointed in me, it's more like I'm disappointed in myself. Since the moment I was born, it's been a part of my body. This is my destiny and also my luck. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chiba Haomu was still practicing his sword thrust. Day after day, month after month. It started at sunrise and ended at moonset. If it were any other child, they would have gotten tired of the monotonous movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. If it were any other parent, they would have gotten tired of the movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. He stood behind Chiba Haomu and saw every single sword strike that Chiba Haomu made. Part of my body? It's destiny and luck, Chiba Haomu mumbled to himself. His silhouette was infinitely elongated under the moonlight. Father, I think Mr. Fang has changed a lot, Chiba Kaori said. Some time ago he was very depressed. Although he still taught us as usual, we couldn't laugh at what he said. He couldn't laugh either. He was like a weirdo with a mountain on his back. Every step he took was very difficult. Now we're laughing again in his class and he's laughing as well. He gives off the feeling that he's in high spirits. When he walks, it's like he's floating. He's not afraid anymore, Chiba Haomu said. Has he ever been afraid? Yes, Chiba Haomu said. He's afraid of losing, afraid of dying, afraid of losing face, losing his own face and losing the face of his peers. Everyone is afraid, including me. How could father lose? Chiba Kaori asked in surprise. Because she was too shocked and didn't lower her voice when she spoke, even Chiba Haomu, who was focused on his sword practice, was attracted by their conversation. Chiba Haomu stopped practicing and walked to his father, Chiba Haomu, and said, Father will never lose. Because I've never lost before. Never? Chiba Haomu smiled and shook his head. No one is born to be invincible. I've lost before and I've lost more than others. It's just that you don't know. But I won't lose to Fang Yin, Chiba Haomu said stubbornly. He had a deep hatred for Fang Yin, and he had always wanted to take revenge. If the invincible god of war in his heart lost, it would greatly affect his confidence. Chiba Haomu looked at his children and his disciple, who was hidden in the darkness, and said, Previously, I had a 70% chance of winning this match. Now I only have 60% left. I'm very happy that he finally cast aside his fear and became my true opponent. Father. Chiba Kaori was stunned. Did he ask me to bring these words to you on purpose? Did he do this to affect your state of mind? Yes. Chiba Haomu nodded. He asked you to say to me, Come, I'm ready. Chiba Haomu turned and walked into the house. Chiba Haomu asked, Father, where are you going? Cleaning my sword, Chiba Haomu said. Chapter 251. Without a 100% victory, if Fang Yin wasn't on guard, Fang Yingying could knock him down and make him kneel. Confidence, martial arts, physical condition, environmental impact, desire for victory, and even changes in the weather could all affect the outcome of a match. Since ancient times, there had been many examples of big shots being played to death by small shots. Fang Yin knew that Chiba Keiru would bring his words to the Chiba army, and he also knew that the Chiba army would pay more attention to him in this battle. Fang Yin wouldn't mind doing something like throwing a stone into his ethereal state of mind 100 or 200 times. Chaoyin technology had been officially established, and Lu Chaoga was recruiting people everywhere, ready to put the new company on the right track as soon as possible. She had been engaged in the education industry abroad for many years, and after returning to China, she took over as the executive vice principal of Rosefinch High School. She could handle so many students and complicated human relations, so Fang Yin wasn't worried that she wouldn't be able to manage a company well. Fang Yin rarely got involved in Chaoyan Technologies matters, and he didn't even take a look at the company's opening. Although he held valuable shares in Chaoyan Technology, if he was willing to sell them now, the money he could get would be enough for him to live a carefree life. Of course, Fang Yan's shares couldn't be sold for the time being. Moreover, even if he sold them in the future, he could only sell them to Lu Chaoga or the Tianfang biological group controlled by the Qin family. Chaoyan Technology, which had the Rubik's Cube technology, couldn't let too many people in, and they couldn't let unfamiliar people in. Otherwise there would be a thrilling office struggle. Lu Chaoga had just brought the Rubik's Cube out from Longtu Group, and it was impossible for her new company to become a new battlefield. However, there were some things that Fang Yan couldn't ignore. It was Fang Yan's first time coming to Chaoyan Technology. According to the address Lu Chaoga provided, he found this not very beautiful but heavily guarded compound. The large stone at the entrance was engraved with the words, Chaoyan Technology in gold. Other than that, there was no sign. The big stone was also covered by branches, and the whole company looked very low-key. After registering and verifying his ID at the security booth, Fang Yan was led by a middle-aged woman to a small building in the courtyard. There were many guards in the small building. Not only were there many black-robed men patrolling around, but there were also countless cameras in the open and in the dark. Fang Yan sighed softly. It was quite stressful to work in such an environment. However, he also knew that the Rubik's Cube technology was of great importance. Everyone wanted it. If they couldn't do it in the open, they would snatch it in the dark. For the benefits that would make people jealous, they would do anything. He took the elevator to the 5th floor of the small building. Lu Chaoga was waiting in the office. The middle-aged woman left quietly, closing the door behind her. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "Follow me." She turned a globe on the desk, and the bookcase behind the desk immediately opened to both sides. An iron door appeared in front of Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga opened the iron door and went in first. Fang Yan also stood in. There was a row of Arabic numerals on the wall, but Lu Chaoga pressed the letter P at the top. So, the bookcase closed automatically, the iron door closed in the middle, and the elevator began to slowly descend. Seeing Fang Yan's puzzled eyes, Lu Chaoga explained, "Those Arabic numerals are all traps. Whether you press 1 or 9, they will automatically alarm. Only P can reach the research room." "What is this place?" Fang Yan asked. The setup was a bit old and didn't seem to be new. In such a short time, it was difficult for Lu Chaoga to build such an extremely safe research room. This yard originally belonged to Huaqing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics. They built such a research room next to the school to study the latest aircraft parts. Later, when the University of Aeronautics and Astronautics moved, they had a more advanced and more hidden laboratory, so they were ready to sell this property. I communicated with them and used the money to buy this courtyard. "Is it safe?" Fang Yan asked worriedly. If he were to use something that had been used by others, it would be easy for his secrets to be leaked. "I've changed all their previous designs," Lu Xiaoga said. "These are all newly added by me. They needed to enter from the underground entrance, and I sealed the entrance with alloy. No one could open it. Not even myself." "What about this elevator?" "The elevator was original. Only the previous director knew about it. I couldn't bear to remove the setup of the elevator, so I installed the most advanced scent detector from Tianfang Biological Group." "Scent detector?" Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga with a puzzled expression. Everyone's body emits a unique scent. This scent is difficult to imitate and impossible to decipher. Moreover, the composition of this scent is quite complicated. The scent emitted when happy is different from when angry. Even if they kidnapped me, it would be useless. The computer recorded the scent on my body. Only when the scent was suitable would it send me to the place I wanted to go. If the scent wasn't right, then it would send you to a death row. The most important thing is that very few people know about the existence of this thing, Fang Yan said. "Yes." Lu Chaoga nodded. "Everyone will look for the location of the cameras and other secret devices. They have no idea that when the air conditioner is turned on, the scent on a person's body will be extracted and sent to be analyzed." Clang. As the two spoke, the elevator sent them to the mysterious underground. Fang Yan walked over and opened the iron gate. Lu Chaoga took the lead and led the way to a silver gate. His eyes swept over the electronic lock on the silver gate, and the silver gate immediately split into 2 crescent buds that opened to both sides. Only then did an advanced and busy underground research room appear in front of Fang Yan. More than a dozen researchers in white coats were sitting in front of computers, typing furiously on the keyboard. There were also some researchers walking around with thick folders in their arms. They seemed to be in a hurry and looked very busy. Lu Chaoge led Fang Yan straight inside. She didn't greet any staff along the way. She pushed open an office door and walked in. Fang Yan followed her into the room and closed the door behind him. There were already a few people in the room, including a dead man. Dean Lu. A bald man wearing glasses took the initiative to greet Lu Chaoge, but his eyes were staring at Fang Yan warily. "He is our collaborator," Lu Chaoge said. Zhao Xiqing's eyes flashed with surprise and he nodded to Fang Yan in a friendly manner. Zhao Xiqing, Deputy Dean of the Research Institute. Lu Chaoge introduced Zhao Xiqing to Fang Yan. Fang Yan shook hands with Zhao Xiqing and looked at the dead man in a white coat lying on his office chair as if he was fast asleep. He asked, "What's going on?" "He's dead," Zhao Xiqing said. "How did he die?" "I don't know." Zhao Xiqing shook his head. "When we found him this morning he was already dead. At first we thought he was under too much pressure from work or some other physical illness." "What about now?" Zhao Xiqing pointed to his chest and said, "We found that. It was a flower, a red flower. This flower looked very strange. It was shaped like a woman's sexy and seductive lips." "Lip flower?" Fang Yan whispered. "Why is there a lip flower here?" Fang Yan had seen the introduction of the lip flower in the book Flora. He knew that it mainly grew in the tropical rainforests of some countries in Central and South America. For example, Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama, and so on. How did it end up in Wuxia now? "Someone put it in his coat pocket," Lu Chaoge said. "They deliberately let us know that they killed him. They have the ability to do so." Fang Yan's face also became embarrassed. He had just walked through it once. He knew how strict the security in the courtyard of Chayan Technology was. It could be said that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven for outsiders to get here. However, in the deepest part of the research room, someone could come and go freely. After killing someone, they even put a small flower in his arms as a keepsake. This was a blatant threat. Lu Chaoge looked sadly at the man lying on the chair and said, "His name is Wuxia. He is an engineer I invited from the new Academy of Sciences. He is mainly responsible for the application of Rubik's Cube technology in daily life. Because Wuxia just came, I dare not give him the core technology of Rubik's Cube. So he is dead." "Where did he come from?" Fang Yan asked. "I don't know." Lu Chaoge shook her head. "Before you came, I went to the computer room to look at all the surveillance videos. I didn't find any suspicious people coming in. Is this person a ghost? So many surveillance cameras can't capture his figure?" Zhao Xiqing scolded angrily. "Dean Lu, this matter must be resolved as soon as possible. We can't hide it for too long. If other staff members find out, it will cause panic in the research room. At that time, no one will have the mood to stay and work." Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan and said, "I am going to call the police after you see it. Although I know there is no point in doing so. But after all, someone died in here." "Calling the police is not the first choice," Fang Yan said. "If the police come, the defense here will lose its meaning. The first thing we need to do now is to find the person who sent the flowers." "Where?" Zhao Xiqing asked eagerly. "I don't believe he is a ghost," Fang Yan said. "Since all the cameras can't capture his figure. Maybe he is still hiding in this research room and hasn't left." Everyone in the room sucked in a breath of cold air. The killer was still among them? He could cut off their heads at any time. Chapter 252. Are you sure? Lu Chaoge's face was also full of worry. Her company had just opened for business, but a murderer with a ghostly figure had sneaked in. How were they going to work properly? If news of this got out, all the busy staff in white coats outside would probably run away, wouldn't they? Smart people were afraid of death, and the people outside were all first-class smart people. Is he really still in the research institute? Seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, Fang Yan smiled and comforted them, saying, "I don't know much and it's just a little suspicion. Maybe he's long gone. It would be better if he stayed in the research institute." Lu Chaoge had already recovered her calm and sharp state and said, "If he's still in the research institute, then we'll keep him here forever. If he comes and runs away, then he'll be a big problem for us." What the director said makes sense. Zhao Xiqing nodded in agreement. Today they can kill Wuxia, tomorrow they can sneak in and kill another Wuxia. Every one of our engineers is a treasure, and losing one makes our heart bleed. What's worse is that we can't immediately recruit new people to replace Wuxia's position. Engineers are not masons who can bring back a small group of people just by walking around the market. If we can get rid of him internally, it'll be a good thing. Fang Yin looked at Zhao Xiqing in surprise. This gentle guy actually had a hidden murderous intent in his chest. Zhao Xiqing grinned coldly and said, "Which new technology isn't coveted by countless people? Domestic and foreign, family and outsiders? I've seen these kinds of dirty things in the past." Fang Yin was too lazy to ask about Zhao Xiqing's background. He just looked at Lu Chaoge and said, "How many people are in here?" 21 researchers, 47 assistants, 69 security personnel. Lu Chaoge was very attentive to the research institute, and she was responsible for all the staff recruitment. Except for a group of people sent by the Qin family to fill out the team, the others were all recruited by her, so she was very familiar with the data. Should we find an excuse to call them in for a chat? Mr. Fang is also watching from the side? If we find a suspicious person, we'll take him down immediately? Zhao Xiqing asked. No. Fang Yin rejected the suggestion. Don't mess around. We mustn't fall into chaos here. The more chaotic it was, the more opportunities it would give him, an opportunity to do evil and also an opportunity to escape. Let's just maintain the status quo. Everyone is at their own job, and there will be people who do not fit in with the environment automatically appear in front of us. Lu Chaoge trusted Fang Yin very much. She said, "I'll give you the control of this place." He then pointed to a dark-faced skinny man standing behind Fang Yin and said, "He is Qining, the person in charge of security here." Qining? Fang Yan's gaze turned cold as he looked at Qining and asked, "You're from the Qin clan?" "I used to be a member of Tianfang Biological Group, and now I'm a member of Chaoyan Research Institute," Qining said with an indifferent expression. This kid didn't want to expose too much and Fang Yin wouldn't force him. Plus, not everyone in the Qin family would know if Qin Tian was injured or how badly injured she was. That was something that could be kept a secret. Fang Yin looked at Hu Jia, who was lying on the chair, and said, "Let him lie here for the time being. Don't touch his body. Before the autopsy is carried out, no one knows if there's anything strange about the body. Hu Jia's matter will be kept a secret for the time being. All of you should return to your posts. Don't let them find anything unusual." Fang Yin took the lead to open the door and said, "Qining, tell me about the Research Institute's protection measures." Qining turned to look at Lu Chaoge. In this courtyard he only listened to Lu Chaoge's orders. "Cooperate fully," Lu Chaoge said. Thus Lu Chaoge returned to her office. The secretary made her favorite Longjing tea as usual. The head of the logistics department came to her office to report on work, and the two talked for a long time. When Zhao Xiqing went out, his face and neck were red. Those who knew him knew that he had quarreled with Hu Jia again. Hu Jia was the main person in charge of the Rubik's Cube technology research, and the two of them often quarreled because of different research directions. Everyone had long been used to it. It wasn't known if he was curious or worried about Fang Yin, but after Zhao Xiqing went out, he didn't return to his research room. Instead, he walked around the team of engineers outside, constantly going to some research stations to ask something, but his eyes would inadvertently drift in the direction of Fang Yin. Everyone else also returned to their respective positions. Hu Jia's office door was closed, and Qining even deliberately added a lock when he came out. He was afraid that someone would go in to report to Hu Jia and find that he was dead. Qining was indeed a member of the Qin family, and a relatively core member of the Qin family. Qin Tian made a phone call back, and then Lu Chaoge rushed to Huaqing Airport with the research materials of the Rubik's Cube technology. She took a private plane that was already parked there and flew to Yanjing. The person who brought the private plane to Huaqing to welcome Lu Chaoge was Qining. The mistress of the family personally met with Lu Chaoge, and the two didn't negotiate for a long time. Then, Qining was ordered to send Lu Chaoge back to Huaqing, and then led his people to take charge of the security of the Chaoyan Research Institute. One had to know that Qining used to be the security consultant of the Qin family. He was mainly responsible for the safety of the family head and mistress when they went out, greeting important businessmen and protecting visiting politicians. Of course, he wasn't the only person in charge. There were also a few old monsters who were inseparable from the family head and mistress. Later, when Miss Qin Tian came to Huaqing to study, an old monster followed her to Huaqing. When Qining first came over, he was still a little nervous, thinking that he had made some mistake and was kicked away by the mistress. Later, when he saw a large number of engineers and researchers sent by Tianfang Biological Group, which belonged to the Qin family, Qining knew the true purpose of the mistress sending him over. This place was very important and no mistakes were allowed. Therefore, Qining put in a lot of effort to arrange this courtyard into an impenetrable defense. However, something still happened to Chaoyan technology, and it was the Chaoyan Research Institute, which was the core of the underground. This was a huge blow to Qining. Were the assassins outside already so powerful? Only Dean Liu has the chance to come down from the elevator in the office. Everyone else has to go through that door, Qining said, pointing to a closed silver passageway. However, it's impossible for outsiders to get in. To pass through that door, you have to go through many checkpoints. Not only are there advanced equipment checks, but there are also manual checks. Most of my brothers are also stationed there. They are all veterans, and it's impossible for them to make such a big mistake. No one doesn't make mistakes, Fang Yan said with a smile. Some people do it intentionally and some do it unintentionally. I don't doubt your professionalism. After walking into the courtyard of Chaoyan Technology, I felt a lot of pressure. However, our eyes have blind spots and our brains also have blind spots. What we have to do now is to find those blind spots and fill in those loopholes. Qining looked at Fang Yan with puzzled eyes and said, "Who are you?" Fang Yan grinned and said, "Curious about me now? I asked you if you were a member of the Qin family just now, and you didn't seem to want to reveal your identity. There were too many people in the room just now, and the Qin family is more low-key." The Qin family is more low-key? Fang Yan thought of the scene when Qin Etian appeared in the tea house in a Rolls-Royce Phantom with the old housekeeper. He really couldn't agree with what Qining said, although his expression was so serious. "I am Qin Etian's teacher," Fang Yan said. Qin Ying's eyes became more playful as he said, "What you said is not what a teacher should know. Teachers will not teach such knowledge to students." "My teacher is a bit special," Fang Yan said. From Qin Ying's reaction, it could be seen that he did not know the relationship between him and Qin Etian. It seemed that the Qin family was still persistent in keeping this matter under wraps. This discovery made Fang Yan happy and disappointed. He was happy that the Qin family thought that he and Qin Etian were just playing a game. He was disappointed that the Qin family did not put him in their eyes. Fang Yan walked very slowly. His ears were listening to Qin Ying's introduction of the entire research institute's protective measures, but his eyes were scanning everyone he passed. He had a hunch that he was among these people. A white-haired engineer was recording something on a computer. His typing speed was very fast. It seemed that he had made a new discovery and was now very excited. A balding engineer was lying weakly on a chair. His eyes were lifeless, and one of his hands was grabbing the few strands of hair on his head. A female researcher wearing a white coat was standing in front of a container that was constantly heating up. She kept recording the rapidly rising red numbers on the container cup. Everyone was busy and everyone was focused on doing their own things. No one looked at Fang Yan. Many people did not even notice that Fang Yan was standing behind them. Fang Yan walked around and returned to the female researcher who was standing in front of the container recording numbers. Looking at her focused expression, he asked, "Do you think I am handsome?" The female researcher raised her head and glanced at Fang Yan. The pen in her hand was still recording quickly. She said with a displeased expression, "Get lost. You haven't answered my question yet. Do you think I am handsome?" Fang Yan did not get lost. Instead, he continued to ask this ridiculous question that made Qining want to cover his face and run away. Chapter 253. Do you think I'm handsome? This was a question that made one's teeth ache and one's legs tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that when Fang Yan asked this question, his body happened to block the only exit of the research room, Qining would have suspected that this guy wasn't here to find an assassin, but to pick up a girl. This woman wasn't gorgeous, but her facial features were distinct, and she had the demeanor of a European and American chick. Moreover, she was tall and wore a loose white coat. She did look somewhat charming. A serious female engineer. Such a woman was rare outside. Qining was also an expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to become the head of security here. Experts all had their unique sixth sense, and Qin Ying's sixth sense told him that there was something wrong with this woman. This was because there was something wrong with Fang Yan's attitude towards this woman. Even though he still couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong with this woman. He made a gesture behind him, and immediately, a few strong young men in black suits came from all directions and surrounded them. It was very subtle, and even the other staff members didn't notice their movements. The woman was completely infuriated by Fang Yan. She closed the folder in her hand and stared at Fang Yan's face in dissatisfaction. She said, you're not handsome at all. Pig head and dog face, bear's back and snake's heart, wretched voice, shameless smile. I've never seen a man more disgusting than you. Now you know the answer, right? Get lost, don't disturb me while I'm doing my experiment. Hearing such a horrible evaluation, Fang Yen wasn't angry at all. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, why do you always sneak a peek at me? When did I sneak a peek at you?" The woman was about to explode from anger at Fang Yen. She pointed at Fang Yen and said, "I've been doing boiling experiments all this time. I didn't even notice whether you're a human or a dog. I'm not in the mood and I don't have the time to joke with you. Get lost or I'll complain to the director. What right do you bodyguards have to interrupt our work? Do you know how much damage you've caused to the institute by disrupting my train of thought?" Qi Ning stood beside Fang Yen. Although he was helping Fang Yen block off all possible escape routes for the woman, he said to Fang Yen, "The institute has a rule that no one is allowed to disturb the work of researchers without reason." This kid was also a slippery fellow. Before things were clear, he was not willing to bear any responsibility. Now that he had reminded Fang Yen that there was such a rule in the research institute, it was up to Fang Yen to decide how things would develop in the future. Of course, since it was Fang Yen's decision, Fang Yen naturally had to bear the consequences. Fang Yen pointed to the glass container and said, "The container can reflect light." Although your gaze was fixed on the container and you were constantly recording the boiling index on it, I could still feel that you were secretly sizing me up. Of course at that time I was only suspicious, but I couldn't be sure that you were definitely looking at me. When I left your research room and walked outside, you raised your head and looked at me. Fang Yen pointed to the glass wall opposite the research room and said, "Don't lie. I clearly saw you sizing me up in that mirror." Fang Yen stared at the woman and said, "Since you said that I'm not good looking, then give me a reason why you peeped at me? I thought that you were very ugly, so I looked at you a few more times. If I were walking on the street and saw a clown wearing silk stockings or a puppy wearing a red vest, I wouldn't be able to help but look at you a few more times. Is this reason enough?" The woman said with a face full of sarcasm. "I walked through the entire underground research institute, walked past every staff member and found a problem. Do you want to know?" "What?" the woman asked curiously. "You used perfume," Fang Yen said. "In the entire underground research institute only you used perfume. Isn't that strange? People like you who are in the field of bioengineering should be very resistant to foreign smells. The lip flower is too fragrant, so you need to use perfume to cover its original smell, is that right? In your opinion, engineers should be sloppy, not bathing for 3 to 5 days and not getting a haircut for a year and a half, is that right? You became suspicious because you saw a slightly more normal engineer? I use perfume because I don't like potions. Although I'm an engineer, I really don't like to deal with these strange and unpleasant potions all day long. I don't like my job. Is that a crime? I don't know which criminal law I've broken. I really don't understand, how can a woman who buries herself in research all day have such a sharp tongue? Is it natural?" Fang Yen said with a smile. "Who are you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," the woman said. "My Chinese name is Luo Lin Na, English name is Jane, many people here know me. You can also ask Director Lu Chaoga who recruited me or my supervisor, Zhao Xiqing. The institute still has my file. Have I made myself clear enough?" Fang Yen looked at Qi Ning, who nodded and said, "She's not lying. There aren't many female engineers in the institute. We see her going to work every day." This made Fang Yen feel a little strange. If an engineer was recruited through the proper channels, how could she become the lip flower killer? Could it be that when Lu Chaoga was recruiting she had already found a chance to sneak in? Engineer killer? This kind of profession was rare. The other party was really willing to pay the price. Fang Yen waved his hand, no longer thinking about this question. As long as he caught the person, he would be able to get the answer from her mouth. "Let's talk," Fang Yen said with a smile. "To prove your innocence." Luo Lin Na stared at the boiling test tube and said, "As you can see, I'm in the middle of an experiment. I don't have time to talk to you." Fang Yen looked at the rising red number on the test tube and said, "Unfortunately, it's not up to you." As he spoke, he reached out to grab Luo Lin Na. As long as he had this woman in his hands, he didn't believe that she could play any tricks. At this moment, danger struck. Yes, Fang Yen smelled danger. When he saw Luo Lin Na's eyes turn cruel, he understood that this woman must have a backup plan. "Dodge!" Fang Yen shouted. Qi Ning saw Fang Yen rush out at an extremely fast speed and retreat at an even faster speed, and knew that things were not good, so he followed behind Fang Yen and ran out of the research room. Bang! With a dull sound, the red liquid in the test tube boiled to the extreme, and the test tube could not bear the burden and exploded. Not only did the test tube explode, but the entire glass research room that the woman was in also collapsed. The attack power of the liquid bomb was too strong. The red liquid in the test tube had a strong corrosive effect, and wherever it fell it would corrode and burn, emitting white smoke. If Fang Yan and Qin Ying's reactions were any slower, they would have been burned into a foul smell. Bang! The sound of an explosion came from Wuxia's office not far away, and the glass of Wuxia's door and window was smashed by the strong airflow, flying towards the crowd outside the office. The crowd was in chaos and everyone screamed and fled in all directions. Fang Yan pushed Qin Ying, who was on his back, away and began to search for Luo Lin Na. This lip-smacking killer named Luo Lin Na was extremely dangerous, and her scheming and skills were top-notch. Under Fang Yan's various tests she did not reveal any flaws, and kept stalling for time until the liquid bomb in the test tube exploded. Only then did she reveal her true colors. If it wasn't for that heart-palpitating gaze she would probably be able to do even more things, right? Where did they find such talents who knew biology and could kill without batting an eye? The crowd was in chaos, and the entire underground research room was in a mess. White smoke billowed in the glass research room, and Wuxia's office was actually on fire. Obviously this woman was an expert in weapons. She caused 2 explosions under Fang Yan's nose at the same time, and he had to admit that she was a strange woman. "Protect the director," Fang Yan shouted. Qin Ying did not hesitate and made a gesture, and a group of men in black rushed towards the office where Lu Chaoga was. Fang Yan stood still, and his eyes were like the eyes of an eagle, searching the crowd. From where he stood, he could see a group of people in white coats running towards the emergency exit. Damn uniform, it made it more difficult for him to find Luo Lin Na in the crowd. The emergency exit was tightly sealed, and the engineers ran to the door, but found that there was no way to run out of the office. One by one they shouted and some ran towards the director and deputy director's office, trying to force them to open the door. Lu Chaoga and Zhao Xiqing were smart, and no matter how noisy it was outside they closed the door and did not come out. As long as they did not take the initiative to come out, it would not be easy for the people outside to get out. Smart people are afraid of death, Fang Yan thought. These smart people were indeed more afraid of death than ordinary people. Suddenly Fang Yan's eyes became fierce. He smashed the glass wall in front of him, grabbed a piece of glass and threw it at the white figure who was sneaking close to the corner of the wall. At the same time his body had already jumped high, like a cheetah jumping from one workbench to another. The glass was like a ray of lightning, arriving in an instant. Just as the white figure was about to turn to another corner, the sharp glass cut fiercely stabbed into the back of the white figure. Fang Yan, who was running in the air, could clearly see blood flowing down the smooth glass into the air. Fang Yan's speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye he rushed behind the white figure and punched the back of the person in white. Bang! The body of the person in white flew up, and slammed into the wall in front of her. As she flew in the air she spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood rained down, and it was unknown whether the sharp tip of the glass had pierced her internal organs, or if Fang Yan's punch had ruptured and displaced her internal organs. Crack! The body of the person in white slammed into the wall, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. Her body slid down the snow-white wall, and a dark red blood groove was left on the silver-white alloy cover. Chapter 254. The sharp glass surface had pierced through her body from behind and came out of her chest. Fang Yan's punch had shattered her internal organs, causing her to spit out not only blood but also reddish-brown chunks of her lungs. She had an oval face and a pale complexion. Her eyes were small and her mouth was big, and there was an obvious red mole at the corner of her mouth. She was not Luo Lina, and the person who died was not the lip-smacking killer who had changed her name to Luo Lina. Qin Ying walked over, glanced at the body on the ground and said, "Her name was Wang Ling. She was a research assistant hired by the company from outside. Why did you kill her?" He squatted down to check Wang Ling's breathing to see if she still had a pulse. "Don't move," Fang Yan shouted. Qin Ying looked at Fang Yan and said, "You should know what kind of responsibility you would have to bear if she had died. No one could kill people casually, even in this underground laboratory that no one knew about." "She's already dead," Fang Yan said. "The glass that pierced through her body was thrown by me, and the fatal punch on her back was also thrown by me. I can now confirm that she's already dead. But if you touch her body you'll also die." "What?" Qin Ying stared at the body on the ground warily and said, "She's already a dead person. What else could she have done?" Qin Ying's gaze swept over the body and said, "You're saying there's something strange about her body?" Fang Yan nodded and picked up a pen from the ground. He used the tip of the pen to lift up the white coat worn by the body and pointed at a small silver ball that rolled out and said, "As long as you touch that ball of light, both of us will be blown to ashes." How do you know she has such a thing on her body? Qining asked doubtfully. This kind of round ball was very rare. How could it have such a powerful destructive power? I guessed, Fang Yan said. He didn't want to tell Qining that he and Qini Tian had experienced this kind of thing together, and he also didn't want Qining to know how he and Qini Tian had escaped from death. This was the secret between him and Qini Tian. Since the Qin family did not want to make it public, why should he be a villain? She tried to use it to fight back as the glass pierced through her body. Unfortunately, Fang Yan's speed was too fast. His fist landed on her back, cutting off her life force and draining her strength. Therefore, the silver ball could not be activated and thrown out. Otherwise, this research lab would be destroyed. Qining was very depressed. He knew that Fang Yan was hiding something from him. However, he had held back from Fang Yan before, and when Fang Yan wanted to further inquire about his background, he stopped him. Therefore, if Fang Yan didn't say anything, he couldn't do anything about it. She's in cahoots with the lip flower killer, Fang Yan said. After looking at her height and body shape, he said, she might be the substitute of the lip flower killer. She exposed herself at this time to cover lip flower's escape. She has a substitute? Qining was really angry. How many people did they send in? What are they trying to do? They want the Rubik's Cube, Lu Chaoga said coldly as she walked over and looked at the body on the ground. I personally recruited Wang Ling. I was worried that she was a commercial spy, so I had her life and work history reviewed from birth until now, but I didn't expect that there would still be a problem. It was because they were worried that someone would do something in the middle, so the recruitment was fully handled by Lu Chaoga. She had spent too much time and energy on it, and she didn't expect to recruit 2 killers. This was a very serious blow to Lu Chaoga. Fang Yan patted Lu Chaoga's shoulder and said with a smile, the most famous intelligence agencies in the world are the former Soviet Union's KGB, the United States FBI, Israel's Mossad. These are all agencies that specialize in intelligence gathering and espionage, and there will also be spies from other countries in their ranks. This kind of thing is hard to avoid. Longtu Group is such a big company, there should be a lot of commercial spies in it, right? Lu Chaoga nodded and said, it's good to be exposed earlier. Let me know how to take precautions. 2 killers had been exposed today, so whether there were any other suspicious targets in this underground research institute was something that Lu Chaoga had to focus on and deal with next. A man in black came over to report to Qining and said, Captain, we've searched everywhere, but we didn't find the target. Qining sighed and said, she escaped. Even if we can't find her, we have to find her escape route, Fang Yan said. He picked up the small silver ball from the ground and carefully put it in his pocket. This thing was really too dangerous. If they were to accidentally detonate it, they wouldn't be able to cry even if they wanted to. Qining waved his hand, and 2 men in black came over to dispose of the body. Zhao Xiqing comforted the other workers and told them that this was a research accident. When doing research, there would often be all kinds of accidents, which was why every researcher had their own independent research institute. However, an accident like today's explosion and fire was rare. The fire in Hujia's office had been put out. Fang Yan held his breath and went in to take a look, then hurriedly left. Hujia's body was gone, but there were many pieces of charred flesh on the table and on the floor. There were also many places that had been corroded and burned, and the walls were also densely packed with holes of different depths. It was too horrible to look at. The lip-smacking killers were indeed cruel and merciless people. After they killed Hujia, they even planted a bomb in his body. If they hadn't planted the bomb in the body wouldn't have exploded into such a state. Those people had already lost all humanity. Qining surveyed the scene and remembered that when Fang Yan first came, he forbade everyone to touch Hujia's body. He couldn't help but take another look at him. Who was this guy? Why did he know so many things? As a professional bodyguard, he noticed a lot of details that were overlooked by others. Compared to him, he was completely unqualified as a bodyguard. Thinking of the gap between the two, Qinying's mood was a little depressed. Fang Yan patted him on the shoulder and said, I'll leave the scene to you. Don't worry about whether there are other killers inside. The most important thing is to find out the way they entered. Only by blocking this way can we ensure that such a thing won't happen again. I will, Qining said very firmly. If he couldn't even do this well, he would have no face to stay here anymore. Zhao Xiqing was still comforting people outside. Fang Yan followed Lu Chaoga into her office. Lu Chaoga rubbed her head tiredly and said, I don't understand. Why did she take the initiative to expose it? If they didn't kill Hujia, we wouldn't even know of their existence. Who keeps the Rubik's Cube? Fang Yan asked. I keep it. Lu Chaoga said. Except for me and my aunt, no one understands the real content of the Rubik's Cube. Moreover, I divided the Rubik's Cube into 2 parts and set up 2 research institutes. I'm in charge of the public and my aunt is in charge of the other research institute in the dark. All the engineers can only get a part of the research data. As long as these research data are pieced together, it will be the real Rubik's Cube. They are anxious, Fang Yan said. After they came in, they found it difficult to get in touch with the real Rubik's Cube. Or they can only get in touch with a part of the Rubik's Cube, so they couldn't help but make a move. They want you to be confused so that they can infer the real Rubik's Cube from some clues. We are facing a very powerful opponent. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "How much do you know about them?" Fang Yan took out the small ball in his arms and said, "Qin Tian and I were almost killed by them." Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan in surprise and said, "Qin Tian asked for leave because of this?" She knew that Qin Tian had asked for leave for a long time, but she didn't know the inside story of her leave. "She was injured," Fang Yan said. "She took a bullet for me." Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan with a strange expression and didn't speak for a long time. "I am her teacher and she is my student. Maybe we are also a pair of friends who can talk to each other," Fang Yan explained. "Does she think so too?" Lu Chaoga asked. "I have heard some of the rumors in the school." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "You know better than me what kind of existence the Qin family is. It is impossible for the 2 of us. Besides, I am a teacher and she is a student. Our relationship will be that of a teacher and a student." Lu Chaoga chuckled and said, "If you agree, I think Qin Tian is very willing to leave Rosefinch. To be honest, the school's education is meaningless to her. I have seen her mother and I know what kind of woman she is. I have always been proud of my abilities. But after interacting with that woman, I actually felt inferior. It is not jealousy, it is inferiority. Can you imagine my disappointment when I took the Qin family's private plane back to Huaqing? Although our negotiation was very pleasant, I still felt very disappointed. It was as if something was missing. If Qin Tian really wanted to learn, she had a lot of options to choose from. Every choice is 100 times better than her staying in Rosefinch. What I don't understand is why she is still willing to stay in Rosefinch. If Qin Tian is this kind of person, her parents are definitely not ordinary people," Fang Yan said. "Last time they made a move on Qin Tian and this time they killed people in the research institute. They are really unscrupulous." "We can't take revenge on every killer," Lu Chaoga said. "We need to find out who is controlling these killers. How should we take revenge on them?" Chapter 255. If you can't think of it, they can't do it. Qin Ying found the route of the lip flower killer's escape, which was through the smoke vent in the kitchen. Such a small hole could only accommodate 1 cat, but it became a free passage for them to commit murder. Fang Yan looked at the smoke vent above his head and said, "The double jumped out to buy time for the lip flower killer. Otherwise she wouldn't have been able to get out so easily. Where does the outside lead to?" "The bushes leading to the backyard," Qin Ying said. "I've already sent someone to check, but it must be too late. Find a way to seal this place," Fang Yan said. "Not only here, but also the entire underground research institute to find other hidden dangers as much as possible." "I will." Qin Ying nodded. With such a thing happening, Qin Ying had to use 200% of his strength this time. Lu Chaoga had already pulled out all the information on Luo Lina for research and said, "She is indeed a scientist, and she has already produced a research result not long after entering the Chaoyin Research Institute. She has been doing boiling experiments since she came in, and the Rubik's Cube technology does need to find the critical point of seawater boiling." This woman was too scary. Every step she took was preparation for this day. "I'm really curious. Who are they?" "Arsenal," Fang Yan said. "A very mysterious killer organization." Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Perhaps when the lip flower entered, they had already studied the Rubik's Cube technology. In order to gain our trust, they let her produce results in a short time. It was also because of that result that I gave her an even more important task. What I didn't expect was that they dared to attack Qin Tian. They knew that the Qin family and we were cooperating on the magic project and couldn't get anything from me, so they wanted to kidnap Qin Tian to get the Rubik's Cube. Although I am the largest shareholder in the Devil Master project, if the Qin family hands over the Rubik's Cube technology to save Qin Tian, I won't stop them. I can't stop them." Fang Yan nodded and said, "So, it makes sense that a few things have happened consecutively. They originally wanted to kidnap Qin Tian to take away the Rubik's Cube, but the kidnapping failed. They knew the consequences of offending the Qin family, and they also knew that the Qin family would definitely seek them out for revenge. Hiding in the underground research institute was no longer safe, and it was very easy for the Qin family to find them. So they killed Hu Jia to create chaos, hoping to fish in troubled waters to find the real whereabouts of the Rubik's Cube technology. I'm really unlucky, everything is related to me. Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan and said apologetically, when I gave you Chaoyan's shares, I wanted to repay your kindness, but I also had my own selfishness. You can withdraw now. I think I'll find a way to solve the problem. Since they have the backing of the Qin family, they won't sit idly by. Fang Yan shook his head and said, I didn't accept your shares for the sake of earning more in the future. It's not easy for a woman to start a business, and I don't want anyone to bully you. If I can help, I'll definitely do it. I didn't withdraw at that time and I won't withdraw now. Fang Yan couldn't withdraw now. The Qin family sent that information, and they would keep an eye on Fang Yan's follow-up actions. Thank you, Lu Chaoge said gratefully. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, don't say this word. If you say it, I won't get any benefits. Instead, it feels like everything I've done for you is cancelled out. Lu Chaoge chuckled and said, I went to see my grandmother yesterday and she made a lot of delicious food for me. Did she say anything to you? Fang Yan asked warily. She did. What did she say? Fang Yan secretly prayed that his grandmother would not fan the flames. She told me to eat more and that I've become thinner recently, Lu Chaoge said. That's good. Fang Yan let out a sigh of relief. What? Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan's expression and asked in confusion. Oh, it's nothing, Fang Yan said with a smile. You still have a lot of things to do, so I won't bother you anymore. You just need to manage the research institute and leave the search for the culprit to me. This is also the result that many people want to see. Be careful, Lu Chaoge said. Lu Chaoge took Fang Yan into the elevator, and after entering a series of passwords, the elevator slowly went up. Seeing that there was a piece of white dust on Fang Yan's collar, Lu Chaoge took a step forward and reached out to carefully brush off the dust. Her body was close to Fang Yan's body, her towering chest was almost touching Fang Yan's chest. The mature woman's elegant fragrance as well as the fragrant air she breathed, made it hard for people to extricate themselves from it. As long as Fang Yan reached out a little, he could hold Lu Chaoge's curvy and sexy body in his arms. Lu Chaoge's face was very close to Fang Yan's face, and their bodies were almost glued together. Lu Chaoge's eyelashes fluttered, but she secretly sighed in her heart. When Fang Yan's figure was far away, Lu Chaoge murmured, Grandma also asked me to take good care of you. In front of the cafe at the corner of the street, a black Volkswagen was parked. A woman wearing shorts, leather boots and sunglasses strode over, opened the back door and sat in, and then the Volkswagen immediately started. How was it? The driver asked with a smile. His facial features were well defined, and he had a full beard and a pair of sunglasses on his face. He looked like a very manly man. That guy was not easy to deal with, right? As sly as a fox and as fierce as a dog, the woman said with an unfriendly expression. If it wasn't for the cover of the substitute, I wouldn't have been able to escape. Even a prostitute can slip up sometimes. It's really surprising. The driver joked. Flowery Lips was also known as a prostitute. Because the man and the woman were of the same level, and they were partners, they dared to call out this unknown title casually. If it were someone else, their mouth would have been stuffed with a liquid bomb by Flowery Lips. This kind of opponent is interesting. The woman was not angry. She sneered and said, if it was too easy to die, this game would be boring. The smile on the male driver's face disappeared and he said, don't act on your own. You should know that we failed to kidnap the Qin family's eldest daughter last time. Although the Qin family did not show any reaction, the more they did, the more worried we were about their crazy revenge. After so many years, who dares to use force on the Qin family? Our task is to take the Rubik's Cube. Don't try to challenge Fang Yan. Fang Yan is not as easy to deal with as we think. If it wasn't because you wanted to get rid of Fang Yan, how could you put yourself in danger? Kill a few people and make them fall into chaos. We just need to stay outside and keep an eye on them. It's safe and effective. You just said that no one dares to use force on the Qin family. For so many years, how many people have dared to use force on our arsenal? The arsenal exploded at the slightest touch. We have to make him pay the corresponding price. It's not too much to take his life, right? The driver shook his head and said, everyone only has one life. Who wants to be taken away by others? Fang Yan doesn't want it either. He doesn't have the final say on this kind of thing. What is fighting? Fang Yin asked as he stood on the high platform and looked at the more than 200 students below. This was the second time he had taught a class. Originally, there was a class in the middle, but it was postponed because he was injured in the 10-feet abyss. If you search for this term on the internet, the explanation they give is, the two sides have armed conflict, attack each other. To be honest, I don't like this explanation. In my opinion, fighting is a kind of spirit. It's the spirit of defiance, the spirit of unyielding, and the spirit of never giving up. If you want to conquer a mountain without this spirit, you'll probably give up when you reach the foot of the mountain. If you want to conquer the ocean, you'll give up when you see the waves crashing against the shore. If you want to be number one in the whole year, you'll give up when you see a difficult problem to solve. This spirit is the essence of fighting, and it's also the spirit and blood of fighting. You must be wondering why I'm teaching you about fighting today. Because I want to tell you that in fact, fighting is everywhere in our lives. An exam is a battle, a sports training is a battle, some boys fall in love with the most popular campus belle is a battle. Of course, if there's a girl who likes Tangqing, she may also have to go through a fierce battle. The whole audience burst into laughter. Tangqing was also laughing, but as he laughed, his face became gloomy. Qiniqian, where are you? Even if you don't like me, you don't need to hide from me. Send me a message to tell me that you're still alive, that you're fine. Just a message, okay? I beg you, send me a message, okay? Most importantly, I also have a battle coming up. I've thought about escaping, I've thought about surrendering, but in the end, I still decided to face it bravely. I made this decision because I have the spirit of defiance and injustice in my heart. Mr. Fang, are you going to fight with your rival in love? Mr. Fang, if you like me, you don't have to compete with others. Mr. Fang, what kind of battle are you talking about? Fang Yin waved his hand and said, there are many kinds of battles. If there's a disagreement, we'll fight with our fists and feet. Fang Yin waved his hand at the people behind him. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan, who were dressed in white shorts, walked out from behind the curtain. The whole audience screamed and applauded like thunder. The students knew that Mr. Fang Yin was going to perform kung fu again. He wanted to tell the students the real meaning of fighting through experimental actions. Fang Yin bowed to the audience and waved to Fang Yingying to attack. Fang Yingying stood where he was, with a painful expression on his face. He still lacks that spirit. Fang Yin said to the audience with a smile. The students under the stage roared with laughter again. Fang Yin waved to Fang Yingying again, threatening him with his eyes to attack immediately. Plop. Fang Yingying sat on the ground and said, the battle is over, I'm already dead. Fang Haohan's face changed dramatically, and he was extremely angry. Fang Yingxiong, this idiotic scoundrel who doesn't care about face, making such a decision without any integrity or integrity. What do you mean by sharing weal and woe as a good brother? Can't you at least tell him in advance? Fang Haohan clenched his teeth and also lay straight on the ground, shouting anxiously, I'm also dead, I'm also dead. Chapter 256. The muscles on Fang Yan's face would have twitched if he had not been worried about ruining his image as a gentle, elegant, knowledgeable, and considerate Prince Charming. He was so angry that he felt his outlook on life, values, and the world had collapsed in an instant. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were two cowardly, lazy, and idiotic fellows. How could they have the nerve to lie on the ground and surrender in front of hundreds of students? They were the inner disciples of the Fang family and the old drunkard students. They shouldered the heavy responsibility of protecting the country and carrying forward the Fang family's Tai Chi. How could they do this? Fang Yan's white face turned black, then purple, and then white again. He tried hard to control the muscles on his face and put on a gentle and smiling expression with great difficulty. He said, all the students have seen it. This is a battle without anger. Because they don't have anger in their hearts, they don't have any unwillingness to accept defeat, so they have already lost before the real battle. A battle without fighting spirit can no longer be called a battle. It's a one-sided massacre. Fang Yin walked in front of Fang Yingxiong, placed his foot on his chest and said, I only need to lift my foot and I can break his sternum or directly twist his neck. He has become my captive and I can use all kinds of torture on him. Fang Yin covered the microphone on his collar and squatted down to look at Fang Yingying. He said, get up quickly. No. Fang Yingying shook his head desperately. If you don't get up, I'll step on you. I won't get up even if you step on me to death, Fang Yingying said with great determination. If I get up, you will humiliate me first and then step on me to death. What will make you agree to it? Don't hit me. That's impossible. Then there's nothing to talk about. I promise I won't hit your face. That won't do, Fang Yingying said. If you hit me, I'll lose face in front of these hundreds of students, especially those female students. They used to smile at me when they saw me on the road. Once, when I was eating in the school cafeteria, they even poured their unfinished braised pork into my plate. If you hit me, they won't smile at me anymore and they won't give me braised pork. They gave it to you and you ate it? Why not? Are you a pig? I was born in the year of the pig, Fang Yingying answered smoothly. Junior martial uncle, I have something to discuss with you. What? Can you let me beat you up? Fang Yingying asked carefully. What? Fang Yin almost jumped up. You haven't even cooperated with me in class, and now you want to beat me up? Does he even care about seniority? Look, so many people like you, but Fang Haohen and I are still single. I'm not in a hurry, but Hero is already so old. Let's not talk about marriage and having children, even if we fall in love and touch a girl's hand. I've only touched Fang Haohen's hand, but I've never touched a girl's hand. Fang Haohen is even more pitiful, he's only touched my hand. So I should let you beat me up, and then countless girls will cry and beg to marry you? Yes. Fang Yingying nodded. If Miss Yi beats you up, she will become the queen of Rosefinch High School. I've asked around and many boys like her. Last time when I was walking on the road, there were 2 guys who ran up to me and asked for Miss Ye's phone number. You're so good at martial arts, if Hero and I can beat you up, we will become the idols of our school. How can you be so childish? Fang Yin said angrily. How am I childish? Fang Yingying was not convinced. He had been thinking about this for a long time. As long as Junior Martial Uncle beats him up, he will immediately become famous in Rosefinch and become the king of Rosefinch, the legendary bird king. Just thinking about it made him so excited that all the fat on his body shook. You think Yi Gentle will become the queen of Rosefinch just because she beats me up? Ask Li Xiaoyan to come and beat me up. See if there are any guys who treat her like a queen. See if anyone runs to you to ask for her phone number. At that time, everyone will say that this woman is ugly and violent. Whoever marries her will be unlucky. Li Xiaoyan was the daughter of the Monkey Fistly family, and she was the most important person in their circle. With a height of 1.6 meters and a weight of nearly 100 kilograms, she was like a moving mountain of meat when she walked. Even Fang Yingying, the fatso, looked small and dainty in front of her, not to mention Fang Yen and Fang Haohen. Fang Yingying's eyes were dull and he said, Junior Martial Uncle, what do you mean? If you are good-looking, people will praise you for your lively personality after they see you beating people up, and it will add a rude and arrogant charm. If you are ugly and still beat people up, people will say that ugly people are more mischievous. I'm not ugly, Fang Yingying said stubbornly. That's what you think. Fang Yen said angrily. He suddenly used his strength and dragged Fang Yingying up from the ground. Fang Yingying was anxious, and he wanted to lie down again as if he was suffering from osteochondrosis. Fang Yen patted his shoulder and Fang Yingying's reflex muscles were suppressed, and he hit Fang Yan's chest with his palm. Fang Yen was very happy and he said to the students in the audience, Did you see that? Even a clay figurine has some anger. When a person has anger, the strength he can display is quite shocking. This kind of person, even if the final result of the battle is defeat, he has already gained my respect. Although Fang Yen said this, he had already kicked Fang Yingying, who had gained his respect, to the back of the curtain of the stage and he couldn't get up for a long time. Fang Yen walked toward Fang Haohen, and Fang Haohen's eyes closed and he directly fainted. Fang Yen was a little regretful and thought next time in the big class he would just bring Fang Haohen to the stage alone. As an elder he must be fair and treat everyone equally. Today he hit Fang Yingying but not Fang Haohen. This was not fair and presumably Fang Yingying was also not happy. Being a person is difficult. Blue Mountain Club. This was one of the more famous clubs in Huaqing, and it was also the first choice for the young masters of Huaqing to gather. There was a rumor that the backer of this club was one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, but who it was still a mystery. This was because none of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing had admitted that they were related to Blue Mountain Club. There was a big battle recently, have you guys heard about it? A young man with ear studs asked curiously. In his arms was a snow-white, big-breasted loli. The loli was holding a fork in her hand, and she was currently feeding the strawberries on the plate into the ear stud man's mouth one by one. What battle? Let's hear it. A woman wearing a black dress that revealed her beautiful collarbone asked casually. She was flirting with a handsome British guy beside her. This is a real battle. The ear stud man said with a face full of pride. Wuxia Tai Chi fighting the Japanese sword god, doesn't it sound a bit interesting? This isn't like those boxing matches on TV, It said that it's a real life and death battle between internal experts. Wuxia Tai Chi? Japanese sword god? Someone snorted. In this day and age, even a duo can represent Wuxia Tai Chi? Where did the god of swords come from? Which small East Asian island? The hype nowadays is getting more and more out of hand. Tell me, how much is a ticket? I don't sell tickets. They're fighting on top of Sword Peak. The ear-stud man said unhappily. He heard it from a very important person, and the source was definitely reliable. They're quite into it. Why don't they change their names to Shimen Chueshue and Yi Guqing? You guys don't know, right? A fatso joined the crowd with 2 foreign girls in his arms and said, if I tell you who the person fighting the Japanese sword god is, you won't say that. Who is it? Everyone was curious. Fang Yan, fatso said. Who is that? Some people didn't know who Fang Yan was. There's nothing much to say about Fang Yan, he's just a middle school teacher. Fatso knew how to stir up the audience's emotions. However, this little teacher destroyed Lu Shu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing. I heard that his body was crippled and his face was disfigured. Do you guys think he got his title of flower breaker for nothing? Does that mean you guys understand that this isn't a game? That Fang Yan. Why is he fighting the Japanese? I heard that the Japanese came looking for him, who knows? These guys are all brawn and no brains, what can't they do for the title of #1 in the world? Then can we go and watch? The curiosity of the women was fully aroused. When is the competition? Let's go and support that flower breaker. No matter what, he's a contestant from our country, we can't let those Japanese win. Just as everyone was discussing the fight between Flower Breaker and the Japanese sword god, a wheelchair made of stainless steel stopped in front of them. A man wearing a wolf mask sat in the wheelchair. His body was curled up in the wheelchair, one hand supporting his chin. The 2 eyes in the wolf's eyes sized up the people in front of him with great interest. He said, the story is quite interesting. What happened to one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing who was beaten up by Playboy Breaker in the end? How many bowls of rice does he eat every meal? Can he still go out and pick up girls? Alright, is he still alive? There's no point in living after such a tragedy, isn't there? Everyone held their breath and looked at the wolf-headed man in front of them in fear. Although they couldn't see his face, everyone could feel that he was smiling. However, his smile was so cruel. It was as if he could stab himself at any time. I happen to know him very well. Let me tell you what kind of life he leads, okay? Do you know how he walks? The wolf-headed man asked. Everyone was stunned. Was this guy a lunatic? Some of the smarter ones already understood the wolf-headed man's identity. They wanted to stuff their heads into the sofa so that no one could recognize them. Why did he come to the Blue Mountain Club tonight? Why didn't he go to the Jiangnan Club? Why didn't he go to the Alluring Club? Why didn't he go to any other club? Why did he have to go to this damn Blue Mountain? Let me show you, the wolf-headed man said with a chuckle. He used both hands to support himself in the wheelchair and tried to stand up. Just as his butt left the wheelchair, he fell back down powerlessly. He didn't have much strength left in his body. The wheelbarrow man wanted to help, but the wolf-headed man pushed him away and said, I'll do it myself. He took a step forward and landed on the ground with one foot. Then he raised his other foot and landed it gently. His butt arched and he grabbed the wheelchair with both hands to support his body. When both his feet landed on the ground at the same time and he was sure that he could stand, he slowly let go of his hands that were holding the wheelchair. Fortunately, his body only swayed a few times and he didn't fall. Come, let me show you how young Master Lu, one of the 4 young masters of Huaqing, walks, the wolf-headed man said with a chuckle. His left leg stood more steadily. His right leg was more seriously injured, so when his left leg took a step forward, his right leg dragged forward at the same time. His body swayed left and right like a duck that had just learned how to walk. He walked from the bar counter to the long corridor and then from the long corridor to the bar counter. He said with a chuckle, Did everyone see that? That young Master Lu walks like this? Don't you think it's funny? Don't you think he's like a duck? The wolf-headed man laughed as he walked. The space wasn't big, but he walked over and over again in high spirits. As he walked, he asked everyone if young Master Lu walked like a duck. There were more and more onlookers, and some people even ran out of the private room to watch up close. No one spoke and no one smiled. Everyone held their breath, as if they were watching a very sad one-man stage play. In the private room upstairs, Lu Qingming and a group of his companions were drinking and chatting. Looking at the wolf-headed man's performance through the window, Lu Qingming's face was gloomy. Young master, is that wolf-headed man crazy? Since when does the Blue Mountain Club need a clown to perform? Bah! Lu Qingming suddenly turned around and slapped the talkative guy's face. Don't call me young master. Lu Qingming roared. A long-legged beauty leisurely held a glass of wine and said, What? Lu Qingming, do you only have this little courage? It's the Lu family's decision to let you take the lead, not you. What are you afraid of? Wang Jinghong, shut up. Lu Qingming fiercely glared at the woman and said, If you want to die, don't drag me to hell with you. Wang Jinghong stood up and stood in front of the window with a glass of wine in his hand. He sneered and said, Having such a big brother really makes people scared and have nightmares at night? But a cripple is a cripple, and a disabled is a disabled. What else can he do now? Don't tell me you're going to hand over everything you have just because of his comical return? Let me tell you, if you dare to do so, I will look down on you for the rest of my life. Wang Jinghong pointed at the wolf-headed man who was still walking back and forth, giggled and said, Look, doesn't he look like a duck? Lu Qingming didn't laugh. He clenched his teeth and tightly grasped the window with both hands, almost tearing off a piece of the precious wood. For him this was a difficult choice. The wolf-headed man walked back and forth 5 or 6 times, panting and sweating profusely. More and more people gathered around, which made him very satisfied. He walked around in circles, glanced at the audience, smiled and greeted everyone present and said, You say, isn't that young Master Lu ridiculous? Isn't he pitiful? However, there is something even more ridiculous and pitiful. Do you know how his face was shaved? You must not know, right? The wolf-headed man proudly patted his chest and said, I know. Come, let me show you. Is there any applause? No one applauded. No one dared to applaud. The atmosphere at the scene was dreadfully depressing. It was obviously a scene of feasting and debauchery, and there were many handsome men and beautiful women around, but everyone seemed to be receiving a solemn trial. This wolf-headed man was judging them. Such a strange thought emerged in their minds. No one applauded, but the wolf-headed man was still enthusiastic and said, You haven't seen my performance, so you don't want to applaud. When you see my performance, you will definitely not be able to stop yourself from clapping. Because in this world, no one can perform better than me. As the wolf-headed man spoke, he reached out and touched the back of his head. The wolf-headed mask was taken off, revealing a ghostly face that made everyone present instantly feel a chill down their spine. Yes, it was not an exaggeration to describe it as a ghostly face. There were scars all over his body, one wound next to another, and there was almost no skin left unscathed. The left eye was cut in the middle, the bridge of the nose collapsed and almost became a big hole, and the lips were also cut in many parts. It was as if one could use chopsticks to pick up a piece of it and dip it in wasabi to go with wine. He was no longer a human. Even an evil spirit that dressed up a little would be more likable than him. This wolf-headed man was one of the 4 beauties of Flower City, Lu Shu, who had been missing for a long time. Where's the applause? The wolf-headed man said aloud. He didn't laugh, his voice was hoarse and low as if he was crying. Now that you've seen my performance, shouldn't you give me some applause? I bet you won't be able to find anyone more like me, because the person I'm imitating is myself. Clatter, applause finally rang out. But it wasn't enthusiastic. A tall man came over with 2 glasses of red wine and said, Young master, let me propose a toast to you. The wolf-headed man took the red wine, clinked glasses with the man, and downed it in one gulp. A woman came over with 2 glasses of wine and said, Young Master Lu, you are still the most charming man in the world. The wolf-headed man took the woman's glass, clinked glasses with the woman, and downed it in one gulp. More people came over with glasses of wine. Looking at Lu Shu, who was surrounded by countless people toasting, the eyes of the man pushing the cart became moist. Lan Shanggu looked at the scene happening in front of him, his fingers rhythmically tapping the table, and said with a solemn expression, He's so cruel to himself, he'll be even more cruel to others. The current Lu Shu is the truly terrifying Lu Shu. Only such a person is worthy to be your opponent, right? Fang Yin stood next to Lan Shanggu and said with a wry smile, Why are all my opponents such lunatics? Chapter 258. The most unlucky thing was to wear a new pair of leather shoes and accidentally step on dog poop. What was even more unlucky was to want to wipe the poop clean but accidentally let it stain your new pants. Fang Yin felt that bumping into the willow tree was like stepping on a pile of poop. Moreover, he thought that his previous action had already gotten rid of that pile of poop. Now it seemed that the poop had already moved to other parts of his body, such as his eyes. To be honest, the willow tree's performance today made him feel a chill in his heart. Using Lan Shangu's words, he was so fierce to himself. If it was his enemy that fell into his hands, there would only be death. Everything that the willow tree did was to ruin himself. He sank his face in dignity to the bottom of the valley. He treated himself as a pile of mud. He already said that he was a pile of mud. How could you laugh at him and step on him? No one laughed at him and no one looked down on him. The trash that should have left the stage of watching instead risked his life to climb up from that smelly ditch. Even at this time, his body still carried that stench and some of his rotten flesh had already grown fat maggots. However, a man that could stand up from that kind of hopeless situation was a real man. He would always be able to gain more respect from others. Therefore, the willow tree became the central character of the Blue Mountain Club tonight. Lan Shangu sat back on his seat and said, "These families that have been passed down for hundreds of years always have their own outstanding points. Especially when it comes to the cultivation of their descendants. Every family has some unique methods. The saying that the Liu family produces talents isn't just for show. Most of the time they use a free-range method and let you fight for it yourself. If you win and get it, then these things are yours. In order to train the strongest lion to take over, the Lion King doesn't mind his children killing each other." Lan Shangu sipped his wine and said leisurely, "Previously, it was the willow tree that rushed out, so the Liu family piled all the resources on him. Afterwards, the willow tree met with a disaster and was seriously injured. The Liu family pushed Liu Qingming out. How could a big family without a young spokesperson work? They don't care about their own family, but they have to give those fellows that follow behind their butts some confidence." Obviously, the willow tree wasn't convinced. He ran out tonight and put on such a show which made the Liu family lose face, but announced his strong return. When he entered the door, he seemed to see Liu Qingming's car. If he was also in the Blue Mountain Club, he must be very sad to see this scene, right? Next, it will be a fight between two tigers or one tiger following the dragon. It will be up to the brothers to choose. Fang Yen returned to his seat and said, "I'm not interested in the fights between you big clans. I'm from a small family, I just want to eat my fill and wear warm clothes. You're also one of the 4 prodigies of watching. Can you help me talk to Willow Tree? How about that?" Lan Shangu looked at Fang Yen with a smile and said, "Brother Fang, you are making things difficult for me. You and the Willow Tree are mortal enemies. It is said that the Willow Tree's good face was cut like this because of you. If I go and mediate between you, he will definitely hit me with a wine bottle. I admit that I broke his leg and scratched his face, but I had no choice. You don't know how dangerous the situation was at that time. He brought a group of people to kidnap my dearest family and wanted to kill me as well. I endured and endured, but I had no choice but to beat his legs and cut his face. After doing this, you don't know how sad I was. I haven't recovered until now." Lan Shangu widened his eyes and stared at Fang Yen. He thought to himself, how could this guy say something so shameless? "When were you sad?" "After you crippled the willow tree, you seriously injured the Jiang family, took Xia Tian to eat at Sky Number 1, and conveniently destroyed the famous Tai Chi master Lu Shueru. You still haven't recovered?" Fang Yan's expression was sad and he said in a sorrowful voice, "When I saw the willow tree take off his mask, I can't describe how I felt. How did a good young man become like this? Although I scraped him a few times, his face is really disgusting." This time, Lan Shangu not only felt that the willow tree was dangerous, but also felt that the guy in front of him who talked about the willow tree with a pitiful face was even more dangerous. There were so many perverts these days that people didn't feel safe living. Lan Shangu raised his glass to Fang Yen and said, "Brother Fang, let's not talk about other people's matters. You should have already guessed why I came to find you. Everyone is staring at the big fat piece of meat that is the Rubik's Cube, and our Lan family is no exception. With such a good thing like getting rich, we have to take care of our own brothers first, right?" Fang Yen looked at Lan Shangu thoughtfully and said, "I have guessed why you are looking for me, but what I don't understand is why you are looking for me. What does I have to do with the Rubik's Cube technology? I am just an ordinary teacher at Rosefinch Secondary." Lan Shangu laughed and said, "Brother Fang, it's meaningless to talk like this. Who is in charge of the Rubik's Cube?" "Miss Lu Chaoga." Lu Chaoga separated from the Jiang family and rebuilt Chaoyan technology with the Rubik's Cube technology. Although I am not as smart as the others, I am not that stupid. Chaoyan technology, from the name, you can tell that this is the company of Lu Chaoga and Fang Yen. Can your position in the company, or your position in Lu Chaoga's heart, be light?" Fang Yen shook his head and said, I am really not joking. At that time, I did not agree with the name Chaoyan Technology, and I have never asked about the company's matters. Why don't you talk to Lu Chaoga? Lan Shanggu sighed and said, in the past, everyone was familiar with each other, but now it is not easy to see her. I have made several appointments, but she did not have time to come out. Fang Yen thought, of course, Lu Chaoga would not run out to meet you at this time. Chaoyan Technology had just been established, and the Underground Research Institute had already been destroyed. Excellent engineers were killed and she was now very busy. More importantly, in a situation where the enemy was unknown, how would she know who was the good guy and who was the bad guy who wanted to overthrow her? In the face of profit, those people could really do anything. To tell you the truth, in order to be your partner, I have specially asked someone to investigate the relationship between you and Miss Lu Chaoga. In fact, this matter is not very difficult to verify. You only need to go to Rosefinch and ask. Brother Fang is now the spokesperson of Lu Chaoga in Rosefinch, and even the principal of the school values you very much. I think, in addition to Brother Fang's outstanding ability, it is also because of Lu Chaoga's influence behind the scenes, right? That's right. Fang Yen nodded. When Lu Chaoga left, she did put in some good words for me. So, Fang Yen, how about helping me out? Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yen sincerely and said, I know that Lu Chaoga found a very powerful partner in Yanjing, and even the Jiang family does not dare to easily go against them. I know what I am capable of. You guys eat the meat and I will be satisfied with a sip of the soup. What do you want? Fang Yen asked. Since you intend to commercialize the Rubik's Cube, then you will definitely develop products suitable for civilian use. How about the Lan family sell these products? I have no right to make the decision, Fang Yen said. But I can help you pass on the intention of cooperation to Lu Chaoga, and let her decide whether to accept your cooperation. How about it? Lan Shanggu was overjoyed. He raised his glass to Fang Yen again and said, Brother Fang, I cannot thank you enough. I will repay you in the future. You're too kind, Fang Yen said. It's nothing. I'm not doing this for money. Brother Lan and I hit it off. Yes, we hit it off. The two looked at each other and laughed. They drank all the wine and drank it all. Lu Shu drank a lot of alcohol, red wine, beer, and even vodka with high alcohol content. His head was dizzy and his eyes were blurred, but he was really happy. They say that those who survive a disaster are bound to have good fortune. He went from a famous genius in Huaqing to a disabled, useless, and ugly monster. This huge difference almost made him collapse. At the beginning, he almost didn't dare to look in the mirror, because he didn't dare to see how his face was ruined. Now he could calmly face that ugly face that made him want to vomit, and he could even use this face to joke in public. Who knew what kind of painful psychological changes he had gone through during this time? Lu Shu hugged a woman and laughed. I'm not a charming man. Look at my face. If a man like this were to lie on you, wouldn't you have nightmares at night? Lu Shu hugged another woman and said, if the two of us stand together, wouldn't we be the beauty and the beast that people often talk about? I'm quite qualified to play the beast, right? Another person came over to propose a toast. When Lu Shu raised his head and was about to accept the wine cup, the expression on his face suddenly became stiff. The eyes that were still laughing just a moment ago also became vicious and fierce. Very quickly, Lu Shu laughed again. He laughed very happily. His laughter was arrogant and heart-wrenching. He laughed so hard that he couldn't stand straight and couldn't breathe. He laughed so hard that tears flowed out. But the tears were red. He looked at Fang Yen standing in front of him and said, you're here too. You're also proposing a toast to me? You also think I'm very admirable, right? I'm here to express my apology. Fang Yen handed over the glass in his hand and said, I shouldn't have beaten your legs like this. I shouldn't have shaved your face like this. I apologize to you. I hope you won't take it to heart. You're apologizing to me? You're telling me not to take it to heart? Lu Shu laughed and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. You hurt me like this and you're telling me not to take it to heart? Fang Yen, you're really the most interesting guy in the world. Ah. Yes, I'm very regretful. I shouldn't have broken your legs, I shouldn't have shaved your face, I should have killed you directly. Fang Yen handed over the red wine glass in his hand and said, please accept my most sincere apology. Chapter 259. Thud thud thud. The person pushing the cart rushed toward Fang Yen. While running, his hands were waving casually in front of him. Originally, it was plain and unremarkable, like a child playing house, and almost no one would pay attention to it. However, when his hands were waving slower and slower, as if each wave was as heavy as 1,000 caddies, and the air produced a hissing sound, Fang Yan's face began to become dignified. Collapsing cloud palm. A palm could collapse the clouds and a fist could break qi. What was a cloud? What was qi? It was a fluid and elusive substance which could be seen but not touched. However, a fist could collapse the clouds, which showed how fierce and overbearing it was. If the master was humiliated, the subject must die. As the person pushing the cart for the willow tree, seeing Fang Yan humiliating his master, he was extremely angry and wanted to slap Fang Yan to death. The person pushing the cart was extremely fast, and in a flash he rushed to the front of Fang Yan. Then he slapped Fang Yan's face. Fang Yan had destroyed the willow tree's face, so he wanted to smash Fang Yan's head. What people who practiced martial arts cared about the most was fairness. The person pushing the cart was tall and strong, even taller than Fang Yan by a head. After the process of accumulating power, the palm of the person who was waving the cart slowly turned purplish red. That was the reason why the internal energy was burning in the body to a boiling state. His movement also suddenly increased by countless times, and he slapped down as fast as lightning. Even Fang Yan could only see an afterimage, and the naked eye couldn't even see the person's body clearly. Hiss! The air squeezed even more fiercely and a painful groan could be heard. Fang Yan wasn't sure whether this collapsing cloud palm could collapse the clouds, but he knew that it could definitely collapse the air in his head. Fang Yan lightly stretched out his hand. If someone wanted to slap him, he would just stretch out his hand to block. It was that simple. Bang! The cup in the willow tree's hand suddenly exploded. It was injured by the internal energy that burst out from the palm of the person pushing the cart. Fang Yan held the wrist of the man who was pushing the cart. His palm had already returned to its normal color. This was because the energy in his palm had been released. Fang Yan looked at the ugly face of the willow tree and said with a smile, "Willow tree, I'm not joking with you. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for only breaking your legs and scratching your face. I should have just killed you. If I was more ruthless at that time, if I didn't think about the consequences, if I just used those pieces of paper to cut your neck, your blood would have long dried up and your flesh would have long rotted. How good would it be to die? Dead people are cuter, aren't they?" As Fang Yan spoke, he tightened his grip on the cart pusher's arm. The sleeves of the man pushing the cart began to emit white smoke. His black suit and white shirt had been burned. The cart pusher's forehead began to sweat. That was because the bones in his arm were about to be deformed by Fang Yan's grip. The cart pusher's face began to contort as the blood vessels in his arms suddenly burst open. Blood sprayed wildly, but it stopped very quickly. When Fang Yan loosened his grip, the cart pusher's arm had already become a fried dough twist. A ball of dry wood that had lost blood and water. The palm and the arm suddenly separated. The piece that Fang Yan was holding had lost its vitality. The qi couldn't flow and the blood couldn't flow. His right arm was completely destroyed. Fang Yan didn't look at the ferocious expression of the cart pusher. He didn't like ugly things. The willow tree also didn't turn around to look, as if the cart pusher had nothing to do with him. Fang Yan also didn't like the willow tree's face, but he still insisted on looking at him seriously and said, "You know what you've done, and I also know what you've done. Not to mention the billions of people in Wuxia, even the Blue Mountain Club tonight is full of talents. There are too many smart people in this world. It's not just you, it's not just me. So I really don't understand, why do you think you can deceive everyone? You made such a big show, you trampled on the face and dignity of the Liu family. You want to prove to everyone that you've come back strong, you want to let people know that you're still alive. Don't tell me you really came back tonight?" The willow tree also didn't like Fang Yan. When he saw Fang Yan's face, it was 100 times, 1,000 times and 10,000 times more painful than when Fang Yan saw his face. Fang Yan felt pain because his face was too ugly, and he felt pain because Fang Yan's face wasn't ugly at all. If Fang Yan's face could become the same as his face, then he would be able to smile from the bottom of his heart, right? "Why didn't you do that?" The willow tree said with a smile. "The first time we met, I wanted to frame you, I wanted to provoke you and Jiangzhulu to fight. At that time you should have hated me, right? Later, I did so many heartless things, I even wanted to kill you and Lu Chaoga. I already did that. Why didn't you kill me? I've investigated you, I know that you're never willing to suffer losses. I've already treated you like this, why didn't you kill me at that time? What's the big deal about breaking my leg? What's the big deal about shaving my face? You directly pierced my heart, cut my neck, and even at that time, you didn't drag me back from the window. If you let go, I might have fallen to my death from the downstairs. Of course, I might not have fallen to my death. So, you should have moved a table and smashed it down, the big table in the study? I've touched it, it's made of rosewood, I'm afraid it's 800 kilograms, it's heavy? I can't move this 800 kilograms, but I know it's not a problem for you. You can even kill people with a piece of paper before you use this move, I never thought about it. To be honest, when you use this move it's really too charming. If I were a woman I would like you. Oh, I'm off topic. You moved that big table and threw it down, smashing it on top of my head. My head will explode just like how you crushed Chinpu's arm, my brain will splatter everywhere, those plants that drank my blood and ate my brain will grow very well. Fang Yin, why didn't you do that? If you did that, I would already be dead. You're also a martial artist, don't you know? When a person's heart stops beating, that person is absolutely safe. Why don't you have any sense of safety? Say, if I accidentally kill you in the future, who will be to blame? You or me? If you don't want me to take revenge, that's impossible, I will definitely take revenge. I worked so hard to live, I ran out to act as a clown, I wanted to get more people's recognition, to get more power. What did I do all of this for? I did it for revenge. How can you not let me take revenge? But once I take revenge you may die. Not only you, your family, your friends, everyone close to you will die. Oh, I forgot, there's also the students. Those students of yours, I won't let them go. If I really can't find someone to take revenge, I don't mind looking for those students. If you dare to touch them, even a finger of theirs. Lu Shu, I can also do what you said. I will kill your family, kill your friends, kill everyone close to you. I will make your Lu family die without descendants. You see, you're angry? Why are you angry? I'm already like this, why are you still angry with me? You can't let an ugly trash like me follow some etiquette and morality, right? Lu Shu crazily looked at Fang Yan and said, impossible. I don't care about etiquette, I don't care about honor. If I cared about honor, I wouldn't have learned to walk like a duck. My heart is already dead, in fact, my body is already dead. What you see now is a vengeful corpse. Lu Shu reached out his hand to touch Fang Yan's hand, put his hand on his neck and said, you see, I've said it so clearly, don't you want to strangle me to death? Come on, a real man, since you think like this, you should do it immediately. Come on, strangle me to death just like how you just broke Chinpu's arm. Such a good internal martial arts master was destroyed by you just like that. Fang Yin stretched out his hand and strangled Lu Shu's neck. Yes, it should be like this. Lu Shu smiled happily. It should be like this. Use more strength, Fang Yin, use a bit more strength. You should make me unable to speak, you should make me unable to breathe, you should make me stick out my tongue like a hanged ghost. Fang Yin, use a bit more strength. Let me show everyone one more time before I die. Let them see how one of the four prodigies of Huaqing, Lu Shu, dies. It's not that I'm boasting, but this kind of scene. I'm afraid you'll only see this once in your lifetime. Fang Yan's hand began to exert strength. Lu Shu could no longer speak, could no longer breathe, his face began to turn purple, and his tongue had already protruded out. His mood was very good because he was smiling very happily. There was no fear in his eyes, not even a trace of fear, there was actually an excited expression. He was asking for death. Fang Yan's expression changed, then he squinted his eyes and smiled. He let go of Lu Shu's neck, and very considerately helped him tidy up the creases in his shirt. He smiled and said, how can you die? I don't want you to die, I want you to live to 100 years old. Because I know for you living is more difficult than dying. Lu Shu, I hate you so much so I can't let you die. I want to see you live well, I want you to see me get married and have children, I want to present my happiest life in front of you. What do you think of this? Coward. Lu Shu's face was full of disappointment. You don't even have the courage to kill, what a pity. I'm a teacher, which teacher would fight and kill for no reason? Fang Yin said with a smile, completely ignoring Lu Shu's mockery. Teaching and educating people is my duty. Killing is not. I say, aren't you lacking in apology? A sudden voice sounded behind Fang Yin. Chapter 260. Fang Yin turned around and saw Lu Qingming standing behind him with a group of people. He stood at the forefront of the crowd and kept a few steps away from the others. It was like the sharpest part of a triangle. Fang Yin looked at Lu Qingming and asked with a smile, what did you just say? I said, you owe him an apology. You owe our Lu family an apology. Lu Qingming said seriously. If he could, Lu Qingming didn't want to stand up and say this sentence. He even wished that he didn't appear at the Blue Mountain Club tonight. However, he came and he saw everything that happened in front of him. Therefore he had to stand up. What was the most important quality of an heir? Ability? Vision? Indomitable character, or the spirit of never giving up? All of these were needed. Of course, the most important thing was to be responsible. As the future successor of a family, if one pretended not to see when one's family was being bullied by others or acted like a coward, then the successor was obviously not qualified and would be quite disappointing to the family. If he couldn't even protect his own brother, how could those distant relatives or other people who were fighting behind the Lu family dare to hope that he could stand up and protect them when they were in trouble? Lu Qingming knew that Lu Shu did it on purpose. He knew that he would appear at the Nanshan Club tonight, and he also knew that Fang Yan would appear at the Nanshan Club. Lu Qingming dared to swear on his character and even the reputation of his fiancée Wang Jinghong. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? Lu Qingming never believed in coincidences. The so-called love at first sight might be the result of thousands of painstaking waiting in the dark. The so-called telepathy might just be mutual consent. Why did Lu Shu do this? Before he stood up and said this sentence, Lu Qingming had already thought of the answer to this question. He wanted to provoke Fang Yan and see if Fang Yan dared to kill him in public. If Fang Yan killed him, he would win this battle. Anyone could see that for the willow tree, living was much more difficult than dying. Fang Yan, on the other hand, was different. He was young and promising, lived a rich and colorful life, was powerful, and had a good relationship with others. He did not want to be buried with the willow tree at this time. Also, he was testing him. If he stood up for him, then he would definitely have the most intense conflict with Fang Yan. It was even possible that he would be beaten up by Fang Yan. If he was beaten up by Fang Yan, his reputation would be in tatters, wouldn't it? If that really happened, it would be even more uncertain whether the family would continue to nurture him as the heir. There was also another possibility. If he was afraid of Fang Yan and was unwilling to stand out, the family would definitely give up on him and choose another successor. There was no doubt about this. Lu Qingming knew that Lu Shu's heart was filled with hatred. He not only hated Fang Yan, but he also hated himself. He hated this cousin who had replaced him even more. However, he still had to step forward. He knew that this was a trick of the willow tree to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, but he still had to stand up and say this sentence. Lu Qingming could see that this was a trap, and the willow tree also dug this trap openly. However, he still had to jump down. This was the scary part of the willow tree, and also the reason why he was afraid of the willow tree from the bottom of his heart. Fang Yan smiled and looked at Lu Qingming and said, "I can understand your feelings at this time. Standing up and saying this sentence must be very difficult for you, right? If I had directly strangled him just now, wouldn't your mood be better?" Lu Qingming frowned and said, "Don't sow discord. This is not what a gentleman should do. Lu Shu is my big brother. No matter what you say, we will be a family. I was trying to sow discord in such a subtle way, but you actually saw through it?" Fang Yan said with a surprised face. "When I was strangling his neck just now, you must not have seen it, right? If you saw it, you would have come over and asked me to let go. Isn't that right?" Lu Qingming's face was extremely ugly, but it was difficult for him to refute Fang Yan's vicious words. When he came to the Blue Mountain Club, many people saw him. He came earlier than Fang Yan, so naturally he came earlier than the willow tree. If he didn't see the conflict between the willow tree and Fang Yan, wouldn't he be laughed at by these people present? Everyone was smart, and deceiving oneself was the most stupid behavior. Wang Jinghong walked to Lu Qingming's side with a glass of wine, looked at Fang Yan and said, "At that time he was lying on my body and busy. How could he have the time to pay attention to these trivial things outside?" Wah. Many people looked at Lu Qingming with a playful expression, and more people thoughtfully looked at Lu Qingming's fiancée Wang Jinghong. This woman was not simple. She deliberately said that her relationship with Lu Qingming was so ambiguous, but it also helped Lu Qingming to get out of trouble. She had courage and wisdom. If Lu Qingming betrayed her in the future, perhaps these people present would spurn him for a lifetime. The pressure on Lu Qingming's body suddenly decreased. He coldly stared at Fang Yan and said, "We don't have anything else, but we have a bit of backbone. The Lu family's people can't be bullied by anyone." Bah. Fang Yan slapped Lu Shu's face. Lu Shu simply had no time to react and dodge. After being slapped heavily, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "I've already bullied him and I'm not going to apologize. What can you do to me?" Fang Yan asked back. "You're going too far." Lu Qingming angrily shouted. As soon as his voice came, a group of black-clothed people quickly came forward and surrounded Fang Yan. Lu Qingming was the heir that the Lu family was cultivating, so his defense was naturally much stronger than that of the disabled Lu Shu. Especially after the incident of Lu Shu being injured, They didn't dare to have any negligence on Lu Qingming. A few black-clothed people's temples bulged. At first glance, it was obvious that they were experts with deep foundations. There were also a few people who put their hands into their pockets. Obviously, there were weapons that they could rely on. This time Lu Qingming was going to go all out. I don't care about my personal honor, but the honor of the family must be maintained, Lu Qingming said loudly. I know that your skills are good and ordinary people can't do anything to you. I also know that neither I nor the bodyguards behind me are your opponents. But if you don't apologize, I will never take a step back. Only death awaits. Fang Yin backhanded a slap, and Lu Shu was hit again. This time Lu Shu wanted to dodge, but how could his speed be faster than Fang Yan's? Walala! Someone took out a gun and the pitch-black muzzle was aimed at Fang Yan's head and chest. As long as Lu Qingming gave the order, they would be able to surround Fang Yan in the middle and turn him into a sieve. Everyone held their breath. Their eyes were wide open, and they looked at the scene in front of them in surprise. Had these people all gone mad? Lan Shanggu sighed softly. He knew that he had to step forward. He was the one who invited Fang Yan. If something happened to him, his wish would be completely ruined. Even if nothing happened to him, if he didn't step forward to help him when he was in trouble, he would probably have a negative impression of his character, right? Lan Shanggu walked between Fang Yan and Lu Qingming and said with a smile, "It's rare for everyone to have time to drink together. Why are you so nervous? Both of you give me some face and let's end today's matter here. How about it?" Fang Yan didn't care. He looked at Lan Shanggu and said, "Brother Lan, I was invited by you. You can do whatever you want. I'll listen to you." That couldn't be better. Lan Shanggu smiled and nodded, but his heart was extremely bitter. Fang Yan, this bastard, meant that since I was invited by you, I'll let you settle this matter for me. I won't care about what happens next. If you don't care about it, why are you slapping Lu Shu left and right? The dignified young master of the Lu clan, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, was taught a lesson like a grandson. Who would feel comfortable seeing that? He couldn't just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. He was forced by this brat to take a side. When everyone present heard Fang Yan's words, they would think that he had a very close relationship with him, right? How would the Lu clan look at him? Now that things had come to this, it was too late for Lan Shanggu to regret. He looked at Lu Qingming and said, "Qingming, there's no problem with Fang Yan anymore. What do you say?" Lu Qingming hesitated for a moment and said, "I have to give Brother Lan face. Today's matter can end here, but I've formed a grudge with him." Lan Shanggu laughed loudly and said, "Qingming, I'll remember this favor." Lan Shanggu pulled Fang Yan and wanted to leave. This Blue Mountain Club really wasn't a place to stay for long. The wind behind him whistled. Fang Yan suddenly turned around. Boom. Fang Yan punched out, colliding with the cart pusher Qin Pu's fist. Qin Pu's right fist was injured, so he used his left fist to attack. Not only did his strength not weaken, but it became even more vigorous. If this situation occurred, then it proved that Qin Pu was left-handed. He didn't know whether to praise this guy's insidiousness or laugh at his stupidity. He actually wanted to hold back when fighting with him. The 2 fists collided and energy flowed everywhere. Even though Qin Pu had secretly prepared for a long time, Fang Yan's sudden attack still gave him the upper hand. Qin Pu didn't have enough energy and his feet slipped on the floor. Fang Yan's body moved forward as if attracted by that energy. When Qin Pu's old energy was exhausted, Fang Yan's fist suddenly opened, and his palm quickly wrapped around Qin Pu's fist. "I hate sneak attacks," Fang Yan said. He suddenly exerted force and only a kacha sound was heard. Qin Pu's fist was squeezed together and turned into an ugly meatball. His finger bones were all broken and became a pile of bone fragments. Qin Pu screamed. He couldn't bear the pain anymore and fainted on the ground. Chapter 261. If you don't do some things well, you're bullying others. If you do it well, you're not as good as others. Qin Pu was not satisfied and attacked angrily. But because he wasn't as strong as Fang Yan, his fist was crushed. In other people's eyes, he was not as good as others. If you have the ability, then fight with others. What kind of hero are you if you sneak around? Everyone likes to take shortcuts, but everyone doesn't want others to take shortcuts. However, Fang Yan's combat power was shocking. Many people present were thinking that they must get a ticket to the competition at the peak of the sword. If Fang Yan still lost, how powerful would that sword god from Japan be? Especially some female audience members, their eyes were full of strange amorous feelings when they looked at Fang Yan. including those women who went to toast Lu Shu and said he was a hero. Although they felt that Lu Shu's desperate counterattack was very admirable, if they wanted to find a man to sleep with, it would be better to find a handsome young man like Fang Yan. In the end, this was still a world that looked at people's faces. Qin Pu was lying on the ground. His arms were seriously injured, but not a drop of blood flowed out. However, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. That was because his internal organs were injured when he fought with Fang Yan. Qin Pu, who also worked for the Lu family, was injured. Those bodyguards in black were ready to make a move, but Lu Qingming didn't seem to see this scene. They immediately turned their eyes elsewhere. Fang Yan left with a smile on his face. Lan Shanggu also left. He cupped his fists and apologized to the people around him. Lu Qingming walked to Lu Shu's side and supported his unsteady body. He said with concern, "Big brother, are you okay?" Lu Shu raised his head to look at Lu Qingming and laughed. "Big brother, what are you laughing at?" Lu Qingming asked. "In the past, when I heard people say that our Lu family has a talent, I felt a little guilty. But after seeing Qingming's performance tonight, I know that what they said is true. The onlookers see clearly while the players are confused. They were the ones who could see things more clearly. I'm really happy to have a younger brother like this." Lu Shu held Lu Qingming's hand and said with a smile, "I cheated you once and you also forced Fang Yan to slap me a few times. We brothers are even this time, right?" Lu Qingming said with a serious expression, "What does big brother mean? Why would I force Fang Yan to hit you? I just wanted to get justice for you and get back some face for our Lu family. How could I force him to slap you? Does big brother think that I shouldn't do this?" Lu Shu patted Lu Qingming's shoulder and said, "Just based on these words, you are more suitable to be the successor of our Lu family than me. I admit that I'm shameless. You're shameless. You don't even want to admit it." Lu Qingming coldly snorted and said, "You're my big brother. I have nothing to say if you lecture me. But when we are outside, we should save some face for the Lu family. The family must already know about this matter. Big brother, go back and explain it yourself. Take care." Lu Qingming didn't want to deal with Lu Shu. After saying this, he led a group of people outside. Lu Shu laughed again. He pointed at Lu Qingming's back and said, "Did you see that? This is my younger brother, the future successor of the Lu family. He did a better job than me. The future of the Lu family is limitless." Lu Shu bent down with difficulty to pick up the wolf mask from the ground and put it back on his face. He carefully climbed onto the wheelchair and personally turned the wheelchair to go outside. His movements were awkward and strenuous. His short and skinny figure sitting on the wheelchair made people feel sad. "Give me a grilled fish, 10 mutton skewers, 10 kidney skewers, 2 eggplants and 2 corn. Give me tender corn, don't be like old tree roots that can't be bitten." Lan Shanggu was obviously a regular customer of the barbecue stall. He sat down and began to order skillfully. "All right, give me a pot of edamame and a pot of boiled peanuts to go with the wine. You definitely don't have Moutai here, so bring a box of beer. I want it cold, the colder the better." After the big-breasted and big-ass proprietress happily ran off to place the order, Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yan and said, "What? Do you think the 4 talents of Huaqing shouldn't be sitting on the side of the road eating barbecue? I think it's a bit weird." Fang Yan said with a smile. "Before I came into contact with it, I always felt that rich young masters like you should drive a Lamborghini or Ferrari to race with people, go to the most luxurious nightclubs to pick the most beautiful women, and if anyone dares to fight with you for the girls, you'll use a beer bottle to open their head, and smoke cigars with money to light your cigars." Lan Shanggu laughed and pointed at Fang Yan and said, "Are you praising us or insulting us? I can guarantee you that if any of our friends in our circle dared to do this, they would be scolded as a country bumpkin. Haha, playing with the most beautiful girls at nightclubs, smoking cigars with money to light your cigars, how did you think of that?" Lan Shanggu took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. It was a pack that cost more than 10 yuan. He handed one to Fang Yan and lit it himself with a lighter. The lighter was also the kind that cost 1 yuan, and the words Huaqing Real Estate were written on it. After Lan Shanggu took a puff, he said with a pure smile, "It's not as particular as you said. It's not that I haven't done things like going to the most luxurious nightclubs to play with the most beautiful women, but I'm sick of it after doing it once. Not sick of it once, not sick of it twice. I'm not used to cigars, they taste too strong. As for using money to light a cigarette, I've never done something like that. Those with little money are reluctant to do it, and those with too much money are disdainful of it. Only those idiots with abnormal brains would do something so stupid that it makes people laugh their heads off. I'm a child from a courtyard. What we often do is steal the Moutai at home, run to a barbecue stall to eat barbecue, drink Moutai while eating barbecue and brag with our friends. Some say they want to be a general, others say they want to be the richest man in the world, play rock paper scissors, and when we're drunk curse a little or even punch a few times. That's what I like to do the most. How should a rich young master live? I don't know about others, but I eat barbecue, fight the landlord, play games, and often take a few children from the courtyard out to be donkeys. We go to places we've never been before. Do you think we're losers? Fang Yin played with the cigarette in his hand, but he didn't light it. He looked at Lan Xianggu and asked, "Who is Xia Tian? She should have a powerful background, right?" "You don't know?" "I don't know." "Then why don't you ask her but ask me?" Lan Xianggu asked doubtfully. "I'm afraid she will misunderstand and think that I'm friends with her because of her powerful background." "Are you?" "Of course not." Fang Yin was very angry. "I'm willing to be friends with her because she's beautiful and has a good figure." Lan Xianggu laughed, gave a thumbs up to Fang Yin and said, "From the first time I saw you, I thought you were a very pure man." "So are you," Fang Yin said. "You're already one of the 4 beauties of Huaqing, but you still eat barbecue and play poor games all day. The body of a tall, rich and handsome man is the soul of a loser." The two looked at each other and laughed. After a few words, their relationship was a little closer. Fang Yin didn't like to speak in a probing way, and it just so happened that Lan Xianggu was also a bold guy. It was better this way and it would be much easier to get along. The beer was served but they couldn't drink it. The landlady was indeed an honest person. She moved the coldest box of beer in the freezer over. The beer and the bottle cap were frozen, and they had to wait for a while for them to melt. The landlady laughed and said embarrassedly, "I'll get a few bottles for you." As she said that, she ran to get a few bottles of beer that could be drunk immediately and brought them over. Lan Xianggu used his chopsticks to pick up the beer cap and it flew out. He handed the beer to Fang Yin and said, "Let's drink to the bottle. It's troublesome to use a glass." Fang Yin didn't have any objections. He wasn't a good drinker and a dozen bottles of beer couldn't make him drunk. Lan Xianggu opened another bottle for himself, clinked his glass with Fang Yin, and downed it in one gulp. He said, "Because of you, Lu Shu's appearance tonight can only be said to be half a success." He wasn't willing to be abandoned by his family, and he wasn't willing to be replaced by Lu Qingming. That's why he ran out to play the clown. With such a ruckus, people outside looked at him in a different light. Of course, if you hadn't slapped him a few times, the effect would have been even better. It's not impossible to replace Lu Qingming's position again. Fang Yin shook his head and said, "He can't compete with Lu Qingming." "Why do you say so?" "Because he has already lost," Fang Yin said. "He lost to me in a very disgraceful manner." "That's true. For such an accident to happen, the Lu family would definitely not be able to get over it. Besides, his face has been shaved like this and the Lu family can't help him up again. If such a person is pushed out in public, does the Lu family still want their face?" Lan Xianggu looked at Fang Yin with a puzzled expression and said, "He hates you, I can understand that. But why do I feel that you hate him even more? When you were strangling his neck, I carefully looked at your expression. I know that you really wanted to kill him on the spot." "Is there such a thing?" Fang Yin pretended to be ignorant. "I never wanted to kill him. If I wanted to kill him, I would have done it before. I'm a teacher, I really can't do this kind of fighting and killing." Lan Xianggu smiled and shook his head and said, "The more you say like this, the more I know that Lu Shu is dead for sure. This isn't the first time he appeared, which means that before tonight, he did something that made you very angry. What is it? Even if you don't say, I think I can find the answer." "Anyway, this is your personal guess, it has nothing to do with me," Fang Yin said. "Understood." Lan Xianggu nodded. "If the willow tree had died, I would never have linked this matter to you. Isn't this the effect you wanted? Say something more elegant." Fang Yin didn't want to be entangled with this topic too much. Although Lan Xianggu looked rough, he was a quick-witted person. Fang Yin didn't want to reveal too much in front of him, their relationship wasn't that close yet. "Do you know Moonlight over the Lotus Pond?" "Yes." Lan Xianggu smiled and nodded. A section of time slowly unfolds, flowing into the moonlight, slightly rippling. "This song is very popular, I often go to nightclubs with friends to sing it." Fang Yin looked at him like he was looking at an idiot and said, "I'm talking about Zhu Ziqing's prose." Chapter 262. After Lan Xianggu left, Fang Yin sat there trembling with anger. That loser who kept saying that his hobbies were eating barbecue, fighting the landlord, and playing computer games had a Bentley Mulsanne that was worth tens of millions waiting at the intersection with a group of bodyguards in black. What was the meaning of this? Didn't you say that you liked to keep a low profile? Didn't you say that you hated showing off? Did your parents know that you were so pretentious? What made Fang Yan even angrier was that you didn't King take me with you when you left. When Fang Yan saw the shirtless and red-necked barbecued friends at the nearby tables looking at the back view of the luxurious motorcade in shock, he did not know how to vent the anger in his heart. The lady boss carefully walked to Fang Yan's side and asked with a smile, That gentleman just now is your friend? You misunderstood, Fang Yan said with a straight face. He's my chauffeur. I asked him to go out and do something. To show that he didn't care at all, Fang Yan even used his chopsticks to pick up the last chives on the plate and chewed them in his mouth. It's too overcooked, Fang Yan said to the lady boss. Yes. Please criticize me. We'll change it immediately, the lady boss said while nodding and bowing. If you come more often, I'll give you a 20% discount. Today the two of you spend a total of 426 yuan. After the 20% discount, just give me 400 yuan. Fang Yan's face was as black as charcoal. That bastard Lan Shanggu, he didn't even pay when he left? Fang Yan took out 400 yuan and handed it over. After walking for a long distance, he remembered that 426 yuan with a 20% discount shouldn't be 400 yuan, right? Fang Yan's body trembled a few times. He felt that everything tonight was really not going well. Since he was unhappy, he couldn't let others be too happy. Fang Yan suddenly turned around and shouted, I say, how long are you going to follow me sneakily? Whoosh, the lights were turned on. A fiery red sports car came to a stop beside Fang Yan. The driver was a very beautiful woman. Her face was like the bright moon, and her eyes were like autumn ponds. Her makeup was exquisite, and her hair was slightly curly. She was wearing a black one-shoulder satin gown with sexy red lips. There was a large earring on her right ear, but her left ear was empty. This kind of asymmetrical outfit perfectly set off her little pride and naughtiness. The woman's voice was hoarse and had a strange charm. She looked at Fang Yan and said, Since when did I stalk you? I'm following them in broad daylight. Who would follow others in a Ferrari sports car? Fang Yan looked at the woman. Even the dark night could not hide her beautiful face. He asked, Why did you come to Flower City? I was afraid that you would die, so I came to see you, the woman said. Because I'm not sure if this will be the last time. Are you saying goodbye? Fang Yan asked. I'm really touched by this reason. The woman shook her head at Fang Yan and said, Get in the car. Fang Yan jumped into the passenger seat with the tip of his foot. Before Fang Yan could buckle his seat belt, the red Ferrari sped away into the distance with a buzzing sound. Seeing this scene, the barbecue stall owner held the 400 yuan in her hand. She thought to herself, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have given him such a high discount. These were all rich people. Giving them a discount would be an insult to them. She hoped that he would not take it to heart. Of course, Fang Yan would not take it to heart. He sat in the driver's seat and looked at the beautiful curve of the woman's side profile. He watched as she skillfully drove the car out of the city, out of the suburbs onto the mountain road and then along the winding mountain road. Screech! The car stopped in the parking lot halfway up the mountain. The woman opened the door and got out first. Fang Yan also got out of the car behind her. The woman took out 2 bottles of Moutai from the car. She threw one to Fang Yan and unscrewed the cap of the other. This is my grandfather's treasure. It is said to be the raw pulp of the first batch of liquor when the Moutai liquor factory was just established. The old man was the first defense chief of Tianfu at that time, so he had a lot of stock. Over the years, other than his old comrades who came over, he would grit his teeth and open a bottle. He didn't even look at the others. This time, I sneaked into his study and stole it when he was asleep. As the woman spoke, she had already slapped the cap off the bottle. She raised her head and took a sip. The woman's drinking posture was bold and unrestrained. Her sexy throat moved, and then half a bottle of thick liquor fell into her stomach. It's a pity to drink like this, Fang Yan said. He unscrewed the cap and sniffed the rich aroma. After feeling it carefully, he took a small sip. It was spicy but not choking. It melted in his mouth. Fang Yan thought that he should give this bottle to the old drunkard. If he drank such a good wine, he would probably have to practice drunken boxing in the yard for a long time. Wine is meant to be drunk. It doesn't matter how I drink it. The woman's buttocks sat on the body of the Ferrari, and half of her body leaned forward. Her plump chest was even more prominent, and her beautiful legs were even more dazzling. The heels of her high heels lightly tapped on the stone floor on the ground, looking leisurely and carefree. This was a rose among flowers. This was the king of birds. Yes, she had a name, Phoenix. This is your wine. You can drink it however you want, Fang Yan said. Phoenix looked at Fang Yan and said, "Are you afraid?" "Not afraid," Fang Yan said. "I'm prepared to die in battle, and I'm also prepared to let my opponent die in battle. Since I'm prepared for these two aspects, it proves that I'm not afraid of death." Phoenix shook her head and said, "This is not your style." "What style should I be? Remember the first time we drank wine? You, me, Bailey Lu, and Bai Xiu. I stole 4 bottles of Mao Tai from my father's study. We agreed that each of us would have a bottle. In the end, the 3 of us finished that bottle of Mao Tai. You drank a third and said that you went to the toilet, and then you never came back," Phoenix said with a disdainful look. "The rest of your wine was shared by us." Fang Yan touched his nose in embarrassment and said, "I've explained it countless times. I had a stomachache that day, and at that time our oldest, Bai Xiu, was only 11 years old. How many 11-year-old children can drink half a kilogram of white wine?" Phoenix was too lazy to argue with Fang Yan on this issue. She said, "You know that Bailey Lu has always wanted to challenge you. He always felt that he should be the #1 person in the younger generation of the inner Jianghu. He waited from the age of 10 to the age of 17, and finally forced you to agree. In the end, when he excitedly went to your house to fight, you said that you were not feeling well and agreed to fight again in 3 days. Bailey Lu turned around and went back. There was a rumor that you defeated your opponent with 1 move. Since then, Bailey Lu has regarded you as his mortal enemy." Fang Yan touched his nose again and said, "For me, the outcome of the competition is nothing compared to the friendship between friends. Bailey Lu is my friend, so I naturally don't want to fight with him. Whether I win or he loses, it will destroy the relationship between us. As for the rumors outside, I have no idea what happened." "What about Bai Xiu?" Phoenix looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "You knew that Bai Xiu liked me, but you deliberately used his name to write a love letter to Yi Wenro. As a result, Yi Wenro beat him half to death." Fang Yan was too lazy to touch his nose. If he touched it any more, the skin on his nose would be rubbed. He sipped the Mao Tai and said, "What do you want to say?" "This is your style," Phoenix said. "Running away, acting shamelessly, pestering endlessly. This is Fang Yan. This is what you should do. I don't understand why you are so stupid this time. You are hopelessly stupid." Fang Yan looked at Phoenix and sighed softly. He said, "You also think I can't beat him?" "Everyone thinks so," Phoenix said. "Your Taiji cultivation is not weak, but Qinya Bing has entered the domain of Sword God." Fang Yan looked at Phoenix and said with a wry smile, "The first time we drank was because I lost to Yi Wenro in a competition. I was beaten up by her. In order to comfort me, you agreed to drink with me. We agreed to drink 1 bottle each, but when I drank a third of the bottle, I began to vomit blood. The blood spat into the wine glass and quickly dyed the wine in the glass red. I was afraid that you would laugh at me, so I drank the blood wine in the glass and said that I was going to the toilet to escape. I didn't dare to drink it. I was afraid that the more I drank, the more blood I would vomit. I couldn't finish the last bottle because I would vomit half a glass of blood with every glass of wine. I didn't want to challenge Bailey Lu because, in my opinion, the Bailey family is crazy. If I beat him the first time, I would soon receive his second challenge. If I beat him the second time, I would immediately receive his third challenge. I didn't want to lose, so I simply didn't want to compete. Because after one competition, I would have to accept their countless challenges. That was really annoying. As for Bai Xiu, I think he and Yi Wenro are a good match. One is gentle and elegant, smiles at anyone he sees and looks so good when he smiles. The other is brutal and violent and everyone wants to beat him up. I think they are a match made in heaven. I was afraid that they would miss this good fate, so I wrote a love letter to Yi Wenro in the name of Bai Xiu. You know, among us, my writing is the best. When Fatty and the others ask me to write love letters, they should at least bring me 2 bottles of good wine or give me a few bags of good medicinal herbs. I wrote love letters to Bai Xiu, but I didn't accept anything from him. I was even generous and didn't let him know. Fang Yan looked up at the sky and said, "Escape, shameless, unreasonable. I always do things like this. But not this time. I don't want to escape, I don't want to be shameless, I don't want to be unreasonable. I want to do something seriously. I want to defeat Qinya Bing with what I have learned over the years." Chapter 263. There was a bright moon in the sky, and there was also a bright moon on the ground. The bright moon in the sky was in the sky, and the bright moon on the ground was beside him. The bright moon in the sky was like a beautiful woman, and the beautiful woman on the ground was like a bright moon. Fang Yin was a little drunk, so he couldn't tell whether the bright moon in the sky was brighter or the bright moon on the ground was more beautiful. Many times Fang Yin would have a sense of powerlessness. Why were the women around him so beautiful? Not only were they beautiful, but they were also extremely smart. If he married such a woman, who would be the head of the family in the future? Of course, if anyone said that they would scratch their faces, Fang Yin would be a million times unwilling. It was a great pleasure to look at such a beautiful woman. Therefore Fang Yin felt very happy now. There was a bright moon, good wine, a sports car, and a beautiful woman with long legs and breasts. The mountains were towering and the cool wind was surging. If that woman suddenly got drunk or turned into a beast, should he fight back? This was really a difficult choice. Fang Yin suddenly thought of Lu Qingming. When he stood up to help his treacherous brother, he must have experienced a very difficult choice, right? It's not easy for everyone to live. Fang Yin said with a sigh. Go. A woman could actually make such a bold and heroic sound while drinking. The sound was loud, but the way she raised her head and poured the wine into her mouth was really sexy and crazy. Her neck was so slender, her skin was so white, her fingers were so beautiful, and her armpits were so clean. Phoenix drank the remaining half of the wine in one breath and threw the empty bottle in her hand toward the mountain stream. The bottle left her hand and quickly turned into a black shadow. The black dot disappeared, but there was no echo for a long time. Phoenix squinted at Fang Yin and said, I don't want to see you change. I still hope that you are the same as before. You drank and ran away because you couldn't drink anymore and didn't want to drink anymore. You refused Bailey Lu's challenge because you were afraid of losing face. You used Bai Xiu's name to write a love letter to Yuro because you also like me. Fang Yan's jaw dropped as he stared at the phoenix in a daze. Don't look so surprised. Even a fool can see through your childish behavior. Phoenix sneered. On my birthday you let Fang Yingying put laxatives in other people's cakes. In order to make them take the bait, you forced Fang Yingying to eat first. In the end, Fang Yingying and the boys had diarrhea for the whole day. You dragged me to the Great Wall and set off fireworks for half a night. The day before Valentine's Day, you dragged Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu to your house to drink, saying that whoever won would get the chance to ask me. Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu were very happy because they could drink better than you. Later, the old drunkard accidentally smelled alcohol and dragged Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu to drink until the next morning. On Valentine's Day they vomited all their bile. You picked a bunch of wildflowers from my yard and gave them to me. Then you dragged me to the river and sat foolishly for the whole morning. While I was asleep you wanted to secretly kiss me. Fang Yin trembled with anger. He angrily accused her of inaccurate statements and said, You were asleep. How did you know I wanted to secretly kiss you? Because I was pretending to be asleep, Phoenix said matter-of-factly. Don't you know that girls like to pretend to be asleep? Impossible. Fang Yin shook his head. I clearly checked your pulse. Your breathing and pulse were exactly the same as when you were asleep. Idiot. Phoenix shook her head helplessly. Sometimes you're smart, but sometimes you're just plain stupid. For people like us, how hard is it to disguise our breathing and pulse? I can find 100 ways to do it, okay? Locking one's chi, closing one's consciousness, returning to one. Fang Yin trembled even more and scolded, You idiot woman, you even cheat in this kind of thing. You are busy scheming against others all day long. What other words of yours are true? I don't want you to die. Phoenix looked at Fang Yin and said resolutely, This sentence is true. Bailey Lu hates you, but he doesn't want you to die. So he came. Bai Xiu doesn't want you to die either, but he can't come. He said that you don't like him. If he comes, it will only make your state of mind unhappy. This hypocrite. Fang Yin gritted his teeth and said, You obviously don't want to do something, but you always say it in such a dignified way. No wonder the two of you can get together. Phoenix was silent. Fang Yin didn't want to say anything even more. Yes, Fang Yin liked Phoenix, but the person Phoenix liked was Bai Xiu. Fang Yan's first love was snatched away by another man. Oh, it couldn't be said to be snatched because the girl had never belonged to him. You picked a flower and put it in your hair. I rolled the iron hoop in the alley. Your smile was so bright in your eyes in those carefree days, when he was the most beautiful youth in the world. Fang Yin also loved a girl with all his heart. On that cold morning in the snow-covered winter, Phoenix and Bai Xiu walked hand in hand in the snow. Fang Yan's body shrank at the mouth of the alley, like a turtle trying to bury its body in the knee-deep snow. The snow that year was very, very heavy, and the winter that year was very, very cold. Fang Yin cried. He squatted in the snow and cried like an abandoned child. That was Fang Yan's first love, fragile and sensitive. A gust of wind could blow it away. You don't understand, Phoenix said. Bai Xiu and I are the same kind of person. I know you don't deserve me, Fang Yan said. Phoenix giggled and said, You're right, I don't deserve you. Seeing that Fang Yan was also laughing, Phoenix looked at Fang Yan seriously and added, Fang Yan, what I said is true. All right, Fang Yan said with a wave of his hand. So this is the legendary good guy card. You women are really good at playing this card. Saying that you're too good, that I don't deserve you, and that you should find a girl who deserves you. Rejecting you makes you feel happy. When we realized that something was wrong, you had already turned around and rushed into the arms of another man who wasn't a good person. Phoenix laughed even more happily and said, Right, Fang Yan, this is the real you. Weren't you good in the past? Everyone thinks you're shameless and despicable, but no one has ever worried about your safety. Bailey Lu once told me that the three of us have grass growing on our graves. Maybe you've even grabbed the little girl's hand to read her fortune. Fang Yan, why do you want to change? Not because you've grown up, not because you've matured. Who said that you have to die once you've grown up? Who said that? Who said to let him die once in front of me? Fang Yan looked up at the bright moon in the sky. The light of the bright moon also shone on his delicate face. His eyes were firm and his voice was soft as he said, I want to win glory for the country. Phoenix left. She left in a rage. When she heard that Fang Yan insisted on fighting to the death in the Qinya military department because he wanted to win glory for the country, she felt as if she had been poisoned by hundreds of strange poisons. She couldn't stay any longer. She was afraid that she would be angered to death by Fang Yan. If Phoenix became a dead bird, that would not be beautiful. Fang Yan felt sad. They did not understand his feelings. At this moment, the sports car came back with a buzzing sound. Phoenix threw the car behind Fang Yan and jumped down from the driver's seat. She strode toward Fang Yan. Fang Yan stepped back and sat down on the body of the sports car. Fang Yan, I will give you another chance. You confessed to me once. If I'm moved by what you say, maybe I'll consider giving you a surprise. On this mountainside, no matter what we do, no one will see us, right? Phoenix's body was lying on top of Fang Yan's body. Her hands were propped up on the car, creating a huge gap between the two of them. It was precisely because of this huge gap that Fang Yan was able to get a panoramic view of her full chest. This woman has quite the body. Fang Yan thought to himself. If you marry me, you might soon become a widow and inherit all my assets. Fang Yan said. He felt that his words were very convincing. If Phoenix were to become a widow and inherit all his assets, wouldn't she be able to find as many handsome men as Bai Xiu in the future? Bang! Phoenix's fist struck Fang Yan's stomach. By the time Fang Yan's body had curled up like a prawn, she had already started up the car and ran away. Wait, she drove the car away. Fang Yan opened his mouth to shout out. However, all he could see was the Ferrari's swallow-tailed and sexy little buttocks. She actually drove the car away? They were in the middle of this barren mountain. How was he supposed to descend the mountain? How was he supposed to return to the city after descending the mountain? How was he supposed to return home after returning to the city? Fang Yan stood at the edge of the cliff and watched as Phoenix drove the sports car through the mountainside like a yellow bolt of lightning. He could not stop himself from grinning. As expected of the woman I once liked. She is so heartless. Fang Yan picked up the half-empty bottle of Maotai on the ground and sang as he made his way to the foot of the mountain. The golden shield, forged by hot blood, reveals itself in times of danger, reveals itself. For the smile of the mother, for the harvest of the earth. Regardless of what others thought, tomorrow at this time, he would fight against the Thousand Leaves army at the summit of Solitary Sword Peak. For the smile of the mother, for the harvest of the earth. Fang Yan howled like a wolf. Chapter 264. I think Junior Martial Uncle looks good in this white robe. He looks especially spirited. At first glance he looks like Prince Charming. Our eternal Prince Charming, Lu Dehua, also said that if a man wants to be handsome, he must wear white. Fang Yingying said, holding a robe in his hand. I think it's better to wear black. Black makes Junior Martial Uncle look capable, serious and cold. If Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the old monster of the Chiba army, wearing this will make it easier for him to slip away. Think about it, the whole mountain is dark. If Junior Martial Uncle wears this and hides in the woods behind the rocks, where can he find the Chiba army? Pah! Fang Yingying reached out to slap Fang Haohen's head. but he didn't expect Fang Haohan to be on guard against this move. As soon as Fang Yingying's palm reached out, it was slapped by Fang Haohan. Fang Yingying was furious. Although the back of his hand hurt, he pointed at Fang Haohan and scolded, "Fang Haohan, you idiot! How can you boost their morale and diminish Junior Martial Uncle's prestige? Now that the war is coming, what do you mean by saying that Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army?" "I didn't say that Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army," Fang Haohan explained. "I mean if Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army?" "Yes, that's what you said. You don't trust Junior Martial Uncle. There is no if. Junior Martial Uncle can definitely beat the Chiba army," Fang Yingying shouted angrily. "If Junior Martial Uncle can't beat the Chiba army, we have to go back to Yanjing. Others will look down on us and laugh at us. If Missy gets angry, she might beat us up every day." "You wish," Fang Haohan said. "Do you think anyone can make Missy make a move?" "You, pa." Fang Yingying was hit on the head. Fang Haohan wanted to turn around and run, but he was still slapped on the head. Fang Yin had just finished bathing. He walked out in a white shirt and said, "Aren't you too annoying? I soaked in the bathtub and wanted to be quiet for a while, but I heard you two idiots buzzing non-stop like two flies. My ears couldn't be quiet." Fang Yingying's head was burning with pain, but he looked at Fang Yin with a fawning expression and said, "Junior Martial Uncle, we are choosing your battle robe for tonight. I think with your temperament, white suits you the best." Shimin Shui Shui wears white. A man, a sword, a white robe standing on the roof of the palace. Uncultured. "That's the Forbidden City," Fang Haohan said with disdain. "That's also the roof," Fang Yingying said. "Junior Martial Uncle likes Shimin Shui Shui the most, so I think you should wear a white robe." "Who said I like Shimin Shui Shui the most? I like Chu Liuxiang the most," Fang Yin said with annoyance. What? Fang Yingying couldn't understand Junior Martial Uncle's hobbies. The name Shimin Shui Shui was so cool that it made people shiver. Other people relied on their looks to pick up girls, but you just needed to hand over your name card and the girl would go back with you. "Chu Liuxiang has a lot of wives," Fang Yin said. "Which one do you think looks better on me?" "White." "Black." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's opinions were still very different. One was black and the other was white. "I look good in any one," Fang Yin said. He took the white robe from Fang Yingying's hands and put it on himself. Then he took the black robe from Fang Haohan's hands and draped it over his body. The white robe was the inside and the black robe was the outside. He wore the feelings of the two people on him. Seeing Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's serious expressions and sad eyes, he knew they were touched by his actions. Fang Yin patted Fang Yingying's shoulder and Fang Haohan's head. He smiled and said, "It's okay. The weather is cold. Wear more clothes to keep warm. If Qinya Bing froze to death on the peak of One Sword Peak, wouldn't I have gotten a great bargain?" Fang Yingying's face was full of regret. He said, "I should have prepared a set of armor for Junior Martial Uncle. Yes. It's good to buy a transformer suit to wear." Fang Yin gritted his teeth and looked at the two bastards. He wanted to squeeze them into a meatball. Did they think he was afraid of death by wearing an extra piece of clothing? Fang Yingying stood at the school gate and waved for a long time before a taxi slowly stopped beside them. "Where to?" The taxi driver looked at the three strange-looking guys in front of him and asked. Of course he didn't open the door easily. "One Sword Peak," Fang Yingying said expressionlessly. "It's too far. I'm not going." Before he finished his sentence, the car had already disappeared. "Junior Martial Uncle, those taxi drivers think we're kidnappers," Fang Yingying said angrily. This was already the sixth taxi they had stopped. Every taxi driver saw the expressions of the three of them, heard about their destination and drove away. "Isn't it just going to One Sword Peak? Why are you so nervous? We really aren't kidnappers." "Are there kidnappers who are dressed so formally?" Fang Yin felt extremely sad. He was going to win glory for his country. He was an iron-blooded man who was going to fight to the death with the Japanese sword god. Why couldn't he even hail a taxi? Is this how you treat your national heroes? Fang Yin suddenly felt that he would never love again. He wanted to turn around and go back to sleep. "Use a taxi hailing app," Fang Haohan said. "I set the tip to be 50 yuan. Thankfully, with this 50 yuan tip, a taxi finally took the initiative to stop beside them. "To One Sword Peak?" the black-faced taxi driver asked. Fang Yin, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohan were about to think of a reason to go to One Sword Peak in the middle of the night when the taxi driver asked the second question. "To watch the martial arts competition? You already know?" Fang Yin looked at the taxi driver in shock. Hey, I've sent 2 groups of people there, the taxi driver said proudly. Otherwise, who would be willing to go to such a dark place? Many people went there? Many. I heard that the Guanyin platform at the foot of One Sword Peak is almost full. Ordinary people won't be able to watch this kind of competition between peerless masters, right? Fang Yen said. He thought that it was a big loss not to sell the tickets in advance. Bah, there are no peerless masters these days. Aren't they just bragging about themselves because they want to be famous? What Tai Chi grandmaster? What Japanese sword god? It's probably not as good as the martial arts competition I watch every night. Fang Yen touched his face. Fortunately, there was no saliva. Seeing that he still needed to find the way, Fang Yen resisted the urge to kill him. Fang Yingying understood Fang Yan's mood and said in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Uncle, I can also drive." "Shut up," Fang Yen said. The taxi driver drove to the Guanyin platform and refused to leave. He said, "It's 160 yuan in total. Plus the 50 yuan you said, it's 210 yuan in total. Brother, do you need a receipt?" Fang Yen looked at the dense crowd at the Guanyin platform and said, "Master, can we go up? We're only halfway up the mountain." "Oh brother, it's not that I don't want to go, but look at the traffic ahead. I can't go even if I want to," the taxi driver complained. Fang Yingying paid the driver. They got out of the car and walked toward the top of Mount E Sword. Melon seeds, peanuts, beer, binoculars. Hey, there are people who come here to do business. These merchants were really all pervasive. Mount E Sword was an undeveloped mountain range. It used to be the base camp of the racing gang. Today the mountain road was full of cars. The racing gang didn't have a chance to show off. But when they parked their gorgeous sports cars at the Guanyin platform, they received more exclamations and envy than if they won the racing championship 100 times. The higher they went, the more rugged the mountain road became. In the end, there was no way to go. This was also the reason why most people stayed at the Guanyin platform. It was very dangerous to climb the mountain in the middle of the night. If they accidentally rolled down, they might even lose their lives. Of course, such steepness was not an obstacle for Fang Yen, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohen. They ran as fast as they could to the top of the mountain. Looking at the moon in the sky, their minds wandered. "It's so cold," Fang Haohen said. Junior Marshal Uncle was really smart. He put on 2 coats in advance. Fang Yingying didn't say anything. He stood at the top of the mountain with his head held high, bathed in the cool wind and moonlight. It seemed that he was about to face a battle of life and death. This feeling of immersion was really wonderful. Which martial artist didn't want to stand at the top of the world? At this moment, a white figure dashed up the mountain at high speed. His figure was like a white ape, a cheetah, and an immortal born in the world. He didn't need to climb with his hands. With a tap of his feet, he jumped several meters up. Those odd-shaped stones and barbed thorns didn't bother him at all. In the blink of an eye, Chiba Hirobumi was already standing in front of Fang Yen. "You are very punctual," Chiba Hirobumi said with a smile. "This is the traditional virtue of our Wuxia people," Fang Yen said. Chiba Hirobumi pointed to the crowd on the mountainside and said, "A lot of people came. It's normal for an expert like me to have 300 to 500 fans. They all want to see me defeat you with their own eyes." Chiba Hirobumi chuckled and said, "Someone deliberately released the news. They want you to die. They want you to be defeated in front of countless people. They want you to lose your reputation. It seems that your relationship with people is really bad." A wise man like Chiba Hirobumi could see the whole picture with a glance. When he saw the crowd below, he understood that there was another group of people behind the battle. Moreover, it was a group of people who were not kind to Fang Yen. Of course, Chiba Hirobumi didn't have good intentions when he talked about this topic with Fang Yen before the battle. "I like to defeat you when others want to see me defeated," Fang Yen said with a smile. "We call this behavior face slapping." Chapter 265. When Fang Yen was very young, there was a question that he could not understand. Why did Shimen Shueishue and Yi Gucheng have to fight on the summit of the Forbidden City? Why did the East Heretic, the West Poison, the South Emperor, and the North Beggar's supernatural powers have to be discussed on Mount Hua? Why did they have to choose such a high place to spar? If it wasn't someone else's roof, then it was on a famous mountain. Plains wouldn't do? Not a lake? The sea won't do? The canyon wouldn't do? Why did he have to choose a high place? Later, when Fang Yan's Taiji heart was first formed, he gradually found the answer to this question. When experts exchanged blows, it was only natural that they would do so on a high ground. If you are not at the top of Mount Hua, how will others know that you are an expert? If you climbed to the top of Mount Everest to fight, then you would be a peerless master. If you went to outer space to fight with people, you would be a transformer. Besides, such a name sounded impressive, didn't it? If Shimin Chuexue and Yi Guqing went to Zhangjiago to have a sword duel, others would say that it was a duel at Zhangjiago. Would Shimin Chuexue and Yi Guqing still have the face to go out and meet people in the future? The tallest mountain in Flower City was the Sword Peak, which made Fang Yen feel deeply regretful. The wide-sleeved robe of Chiba revealed half of her fair breasts. His robe was actually empty, and his skin was so white, even whiter than a woman's. This filled Fang Yan's heart with anticipation. If the Qinya soldier froze to death on the top of the mountain, then he would win without a fight. Fang Yan's shirt was white on the inside and black on the outside. His long robe reached the top of his shoes. The circular cloth shoes were the ones he had worn when he ran away. These were the 1,000-layer soles that his mother had stitched for him. Not only was it sturdy and durable, but it also had emotional support. Upon hearing Fang Yan's wish to reverse the situation and slap his face, Chiba of the army didn't smile at him. Instead, he seriously said, "You Wuxia people have an old saying, don't bully the young for being poor. In terms of age, I'm much older than you." Fang Yan sneered and said, "I thought you didn't know. What kind of hero are you to challenge me at such an old age? Why don't you challenge the king of gossip, Kai Zhonghong? Why don't you challenge the martial arts fanatic Ho Jindong? Why don't you challenge householder Weed?" The people that Fang Yan called out were all people that he didn't like or wanted to defeat. If the Chiba military department had issued a challenge to them in advance, then Fang Yan could have saved a lot of time and energy. In the darkness of One Sword Peak, the roars of several men could be heard. "Yellow-haired brat, you yellow-haired brat. If this Japanese kid can't kill you, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. I'm going to die of anger, I'm really going to die of anger. Don't stop me. Let me fight that B***starred who has no sense of propriety. I'll let him know the power of our 8 trigram school. I'm Blue Cloud, the useless disciple of householder Weed. Fang Yan, if you don't die today, I'll definitely challenge you tomorrow." The most awkward thing happened. You thought that you were talking behind someone's back to attract enemies, but you didn't expect that the person you were attacking and slandering was standing behind you and watching coldly. Of course, after hearing Fang Yan's words, their gazes were no longer cold, and they could no longer watch from the sidelines. All of them shouted and cursed, wanting to rush forward and kill Fang Yan before the Chiba military department did. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other. Fang Yingying's face was pale as he said, "How many people did Junior Martial Uncle offend with just one sentence? I don't know about the others, but the 8 trigram school's householder Weed and that martial arts fanatic Ho Jindong will definitely fight to the death with our family. Junior Martial Uncle is Junior Martial Uncle. It's amazing how much hatred he can garner. If Junior Martial Uncle wins today, we'll stay away from him tomorrow," Fang Yingying exhorted. If Junior Martial Uncle lost or died, then everything would be over. People in the martial arts world would also pay attention to a person's death. No matter how much they hated Junior Martial Uncle in the past, they would not take revenge on his family after he passed away. However, if Junior Martial Uncle won today, those people would take revenge on him crazily. Junior Martial Uncle was a despicable person with high martial arts skills, so he was naturally not afraid of them. These 2 little followers couldn't bear such a blow of anger. "I've already thought about it. If Junior Martial Uncle wins today, we'll buy tickets to go back to Yanjing tomorrow." Fang Haohan nodded and agreed with Fang Yingying's words. He felt that this was the first time his big brother had spoken so reasonably. Fang Yan was very angry. He pointed at the crowd in the darkness and scolded, "Are you done? I'm recommending our Huaxia's elite martial artist to the Japanese sword god. The reason why I mentioned your names is because I admire you. Why don't I let him challenge Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan? Because it's not necessary." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan wanted to buy tickets to go back to Yanjing now. "Yellow hair boy, wait to die. Grandpa doesn't need your admiration. If you lose, we'll naturally challenge that old guy. Master's name is not something you can call out." Fang Yan prepared to die. He was fighting an international enemy to the death, but there was a group of bastards hiding in the darkness and scolding him. Fang Yan felt that these guys were really too embarrassing. He picked up a stone from the ground and threw it toward the place where there were many people in the darkness. The stone flew out, but it didn't make any sound. When Fang Yan was wondering where the stone flew to, the big stone smashed toward Fang Yan at a faster speed. Before Fang Yan had time to fight back, Countless stones flew out from the darkness. Fang Yen covered his head and ran away shouting, "Hero, help me fight back." "Okay, junior martial uncle." Fang Yingying agreed readily, then picked up the stone and threw it at Fang Yen. Such a junior martial uncle didn't matter, he just wanted to smash him to death. After everyone was busy for a while, Fang Yen came out of the corner with a smile and said to Chiba, who was standing still and waving his sleeves to throw the stones away, "Look, our Wuxia people are so enthusiastic. You have achieved your goal. There are 3 people who are worth fighting," Chiba Hirobumi said as he looked at Fang Yen. He looked very calm. "What are their names?" Fang Yen had purposely attracted the stone formation to create psychological pressure on the Thousand Leaves division. It was just like how Chiba deliberately mentioned to Fang Yen that someone deliberately released the news of their battle to ruin Fang Yan's reputation. This kind of thing made people feel uncomfortable. For super martial artists like them, a storm was like taking a stroll in the park, and they wouldn't bat an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them. However, a straw could also crush a camel. Before that straw was put down, one had to keep pressing stones on the camel. Chiba was pressing stones on Fang Yen, and Fang Yen was also pressing stones on Chiba. This was a psychological battle, and the pressure was already formed as they talked. "I've already said that they are Grandmaster 8 Trigrams, martial fanatic Ho Jindong, and Weed Hermit's disciple Qin Yun. I just don't know if Weed Hermit, that old Taoist, is here. He's very good at climbing the cloud ladder." Chiba didn't disappoint Fang Yen. He said decisively, "After I defeat you, I'll visit them one by one." What's more, this one sentence had created 3 opponents for him at once. This was a trap that Fang Yen had dug for him, and it was also an inner demon. He had to take Fang Yan's move. Before setting foot on the magical land of Wuxia, Chiba already knew that Wuxia was full of martial artists and talents. So what if 3 top-notch experts appeared with one stone? So what if I have to accept their challenge after I defeat you? I entered the Tao with the sword. With a sword in hand, the world is mine. Those who block my sword, I'll cut their bodies and destroy their spirits. Whether it's 1 person or 100 people, they'll all die under my sword. How lonely would it be without human blood to feed the sword? With this thought, Chiba's heroic spirit reached the clouds, and his fighting spirit rose in him. Fang Yen waved his hand. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan immediately ran faster than rabbits. A great battle was about to break out. They were afraid that they would get involved in it. Chiba raised the middle finger of his right hand. His feet didn't move at all, but he rose into the air out of thin air. The mountain wind whistled, rustling the weeds and leaves on the ground. The strange thing was that Chiba's clothes and long hair were tightly attached to his body, completely unaffected by the wind. This was a shield of qi which could release qi and cover his whole body. Fang Yen knew that at this moment, Qinya's Department of War could not be touched by wind, rain, or mosquitoes. With this person's profound cultivation, even if an ordinary person hacked at him with a saber or axe, they would not be able to harm him. This was the world of high-level martial artists, which was also the inner Jianghu that ordinary people didn't know. Fang Yen was the opposite of Chiba's. He stretched out his arms, and the black robe covering him was blown away by the mountain wind. The wind was soft and gentle, helping him take off his cumbersome clothes very skillfully. The tip of his right foot touched the ground and began to draw a semicircle in front of him. If you looked carefully, you would find that the tip of Fang Yan's foot didn't actually touch the ground. It didn't even touch the weeds and mud on the ground, but there was a clear semicircle on the ground. Some weeds and leaves were cut, giving off the sweet smell of juice. Fang Yen was dressed in white. Just his good looks alone made people feel that he was extremely handsome and suave. Fang Yen bowed slightly and his plum blossom steps were natural. His hands also danced with his body consciously. The wind was blowing and he was blowing with the wind. The tree was shaking and he was shaking with the tree. He was the wind and he became the tree. As soon as Tai Chi entered meditation, everything was put down, and he entered a peaceful world. It seemed that under the bright sun, in the universe, in the flowers and plants, he was swaying and flickering. Seeing Fang Yan's state at this time, someone in the dark shadow cheered. Tai Chi is most particular about starting momentum. Starting is part of Tai Chi and it is also the beginning. Quiet like a 1,000-year-old pine and cypress, 10,000-year-old tortoise. Moving like a river dam, wind and thunder rolling, stars falling, planets crashing. This kid actually has the momentum of wind and thunder when he moves. Interesting. Chiba heard the comments of the outside world. In his world, every flower, every grass, every insect, every bird, every sound was captured by him at will. In his absolute wall domain he was the god that ruled the world. This was somewhat similar to Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi. All methods returned to the origin. The origin of the world was unique. Anything that was done to the extreme would enter the same domain. Since he had already entered the battle, then he would abandon the noise and use his most powerful killing move to defeat and kill the opponent. This was respect. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.